she felt very uncomfortable. In first place, it was barely 9:50. It was a Tuesday when she got back from the holidays. And she was the only one that got tested. The person that tested her didn't contact the parents before they took the test. Sorry.
That's okay.
It was just something that she wished she can forget. They called me right after it had already happened, and it was lunchtime when my daughter had texted me to tell me how she had felt. It was just, this feels like it was something that was profiled, and something that, like, if she was a different race or ethnicity, this wouldn't have happened to her. She wasn't the only one that this happened to. There was other students, there was another student as well. And when I met, it took about the superintendent about 3 months for you guys to contact my mother back and explain why this had happened to her, for you guys not to even answer what had happened to her. And the test that her education was interrupted. So she had to take the test in order for her to go back to class. And she only took it for 2 reasons only. One reason, she wanted to go back to class to finish her project. Second reason, she didn't want her mom to be interrupted in her job. So she took it and it came out negative. It came out negative, by the way. And she was innocent. She didn't want to take it, and she had to take it in order for her to go back to class.
So only my question is, why they really like to decide to make the test? Only because she is smelling like alcohol and not 100% sure is like, I don't think so. Nobody in the school, like in the senior, especially in the senior, decide to go to a school to when alcohol test, and nobody need to go to high school when alcohol. But I know maybe you understand because maybe you already a parents too, like now or before, and you already have your kids in the high school. So the question is, why happened when her and not us when the other 2 students? Because it's supposed to be 3 students together in it to the school, and why he only decide only she and not the other ones? And that's it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your comments, Chris. I believe you'll be following up.
Yeah, and Senora Soto, we talked this morning. I'm happy to talk to you more if you have more questions. I will give you a call in the next few days.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments on non-agenda items at this point?
Let me just take a glance. No other comments on non-agenda items.
Continuing with the agenda, we're moving to the approval of the consent agenda. Any questions or comments about the items on the consent agenda? Or do I have a motion?
I will move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? All right, so moving on to the agenda. Item number 10, a report.
Yeah, so just wanted to, and Karen, you might unmute Aaron and Diane if they have anything they want to talk about under this also. Just have a standing item around operations and how things are going during the COVID-19 crisis. So I just want to give a few updates. As you are aware, we're rapidly coming to the end of the year, and we have found some, not as good as graduation ways, but still fun ways to celebrate our graduating seniors. If you were to drive by Rec Park today, you'd see a giant banner out there with a photo of every senior.
That's awesome.
We hope tomorrow, but by the weekend, the city is going to be hanging up individualized banners on the light poles downtown with photos of our graduates. You've driven around town the last few days. You've seen the lawn signs that families are putting in their homes saying proud family of a 2020 HHS graduate. So we're trying to find ways to recognize them and capture that special feeling, and it's hard. They have a lot that was taken away from them in this crisis. There's going to be this closure to 13 years that they don't get, and so we're trying to provide it as much as possible. We also have 2 videos that will drop graduation night. One is basically an online graduation ceremony with music and speakers and everything you'd expect in a normal graduation, and then another video of students kind of just talking about their experience and reflecting on their time in school. So both of those will be there. And then finally, we're working on sort of a drive-through, not inviting people. We cannot do that. So please hear that. We can't have people come to watch, but a drive-through kind of graduation where one by one families can drive in and we can hand diplomas off. But we can't have any kind of event that has an audience beyond a few people. So trying to do what we can to be as close to normal as possible and celebrate them. And then, kind of the $1 million question right now, I sent a letter home to this point today are we going to reopen and when, and what's it going to look like? And the truth of the matter is we don't know. That I wrote a long letter that basically said we don't know today. We are running through scenarios every day. I can assure you, we know that's going to be 3 possibilities. We'll be back in distance learning, or we'll have some sort of staggered schedule with less kids in class on each day, or we'll be normal. I mean, those are pretty much the only 3 options. But the fact of the matter is that there's no clear protocol yet from the state or county on how and when schools can reopen, what conditions will necessitate or guide our reopening process. We are actively, as districts, lobbying the county to work with us to establish those protocols and have them be science-based, based on our feelings and we absolutely want to get our economy started again, but we don't want to do it by sacrificing lives or endangering the well-being of our students and our teachers. So we want to make sure everything is medically based as we move forward. So unfortunately, not a lot to say about reopening other than we are actively thinking about it. For instance, kudos to Erin Fender. She's been working with the city to try and brainstorm options on could we provide, if we come back on a staggered schedule, childcare for children who aren't in school on the off day at a separate campus, right? We think we may be close to having something like that in place, although the state then just said they're going to cut funding to our daycare program, so that's a wrench. But we're actively pursuing things like that. The reality is that we probably aren't going to know probably until July. I anticipate that us administrators won't get much of a summer this summer, and we will be working diligently to create whatever kind of education is dictated by the science for the fall. So we are committed to working with our staff. Spoke with the unions yesterday about having their input when we get to talking about what it's actually going to look like. And to that end, actually, we're sending a survey out to our teachers and our classified staff to ask how distance learning has gone. What are our takeaways? What are their takeaways? What works, what doesn't? So that if we are finding ourselves back there in August and September, we can adapt and be nimble. So Diane, Aaron, did you have anything you wanted to add?
The only thing that I'd like to add maybe is just to sort of solidify that not only are we looking at what instruction might look like, but also what social emotional supports students might need, staff might need, and the counseling team is doing a great job They're attending a bunch of webinars. We had a guest speaker today talk to our team meeting. We're looking at different curriculum. And so we're going to be hopefully ready to go no matter what it looks like in the fall.
Yeah, obviously lots of behind the scenes planning going on that, we don't have time to get into right now. But one thing I do want to say, last week was teacher appreciation, and this week is classified appreciation. Man, oh man, have these folks stepped up with heart and soul and calm and just doing the work. Also, I want to thank the parents out there. I know it's not easy. I know there's a lot of parents here with us tonight. Sticking through this. I know it's not easy when you're trying to educate your kids. So just thanks. And, we've come together as a community. We still have a lot to learn together and to support each other. But I just want to give thanks, to the staff, both classified and certificated, and to recognize the parents and what this has done to parent life and home life. So stick with us. We're working it out. We're all building the airplane as we go, and just continue to be positive and work together.
Yeah, I want to recognize staff too. We are actually, it's Classified Employee Week, and our classified have been nothing short of heroic in this effort. They're the ones that are disinfecting our campuses constantly for those of us who have to be here, keeping us safe, providing food to the needy in our community, zooming in to help kids who are struggling, you name it, they're doing it. And so really grateful for everything they're doing, and the same for teachers. The teachers are doing an amazing job. We created a whole different way of doing school in a matter of days. And it was because of the teamwork and the quality of people that we have here. So we wouldn't have been able to accomplish it without them, and just really grateful for the great work they're doing. And we do not take any of it for granted. They are encountering the exact same stress that the rest of us are at home in terms of working and watching their kids and trying to get them to do their work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's been a tough time for us all, and very grateful for how we've come together to confront it.
So I have a comment. One is, I love the banner at Rec Park, and I think that might be something that we want to do every year, is to have that banner with the graduates' portraits up there. Not only did I spend time looking at every single picture and identifying the kids that I knew, but while I was there, I watched and have continued to watch lots of people stop by and look at that banner. And I think that that's something to file away to do every year to honor our graduates. And the other is that when you survey your staff about how distance learning is going, I have had the real pleasure of having my grandsons the last 3 weeks and taking over distance learning from my son and daughter-in-law. And I think that you need to find out from parents what they need. It is, it's not school.
No, we don't.
I don't care how many worksheets you provide. I don't care. It's not school. And we're asking people to do something that is just really bird dogging their kids. And a lot of, so one of my grandchildren is in TK, and Miss Anderson does lots and lots of wonderful things for the kids. And there's songs for them to sing, and there's books for them to hear, and there's Zoom sessions with her. And in order for Walker to do the amount of materials that are available for him, he spends 2 or 3 hours a day on the computer. And that's not okay. It's simply not okay with me. I think that we have to, if we have to go, and I would be very surprised if we don't go back into distance learning. I think that we really need to take a look at how we deliver instruction. And then saying that as a former teacher. In a school day, I mean, so my fifth grader has the amount of work that he would probably be completing in a school day, but without all of the teaching that's going on. And so it's worksheets. So I just think you need to find out a little bit from your parents about what it's like for them. So
We do have plans to survey parents also. So
good. I think that you need to find out.
But may I say something, President Del Rey?
Of course.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I totally second what Aaron Fender said and the superintendent said about our teachers and our classified staff.
Absolutely.
I can't imagine, and I taught junior high, I just can't imagine it. And I know I'm not techie and all that, but just trying to connect with 100+ kids and teach classes and having those lessons set up boggles my mind. And I also have talked to a lot of parents and kids. I had one kid said if I wanted to be a stay-at-home learner, I would. It's like I said, well, nobody planned this. But I also heard from parents that are just grateful, thankful, and appreciative of the work that the teachers do, and the classified, those that have been handing out food, those that have been getting things ready so the teachers can do their job, and the parents can more easily, quote, do their job. But I think it's very hard. It was said earlier that what we have to look at, and I don't know how it falls to us, but there are parents, to support them, to help them, whether it's about, and somebody said, we need more structure. And I of course said, well, that works really well when the kids are at school. At home, you have to help them set up the structure. But I think maybe there's some, maybe we've done this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Superintendent. These are some hints that you can do. Do this, from 8 to 10, or what, some sort of structure so kids can have time to learn, to enjoy, to recreate, etc. But help the parents. Well, one parent was asking for more accountability, more routines, and communication. I think one of the things, and again, I toss it back to the parents, but I think it's also important for us to communicate what, on a regular basis, what's going on in the classroom. Somebody was talking about Aries and I lost the password. And I think I was asking SB or somebody, I think this was at one of the ELAC meetings. I said, would you text all the parents to say, if you lost your Aries password, give us a call. And maybe we need to do that on a regular basis. Hindsight's great, but there's 3 weeks left. How many weeks left in school? But I'm looking more to next year because I'm not convinced. I wish that I were, that we will be back full time. I truly wish we were. Everybody does. I mean, that's silly for me not to say that. But if we're on partial, and my guess is we may well be, we have to make sure that we're doing the best we can in communicating. But again, I don't fault anybody. I just know we're in this unique situation. Hopefully it's unique and over in 2 or 3 weeks. And when we come back, but I really and truly hope that whatever it is what we've learned from, God, how many weeks now? 11 weeks or whatever the number is, that we've learned, and we can strengthen the learning and the support at home. But again, I take nothing away from the teachers. I take nothing away from the administration and nothing away from our classified staff. You all are doing an outstanding job. And I truly appreciate it. And from where I sit, and I sit way back, I'm not involved in the middle of it, but I have friends, families, and neighbors, etc., that continually give me feedback. And they all are impressed, but they sure want to get out of it, as we all do. But again, I thank all the staff.
yeah, I think obviously this is not ideal. None of us want to be in this situation, and we created it in a matter of days. And obviously it's evolved. But these are the questions and concerns that are being asked across the world, right? This is not unique to Hillsburg. This is not unique to us. And obviously, we are being introspective and looking for ways that we can improve when and if we have to be back in distance learning. So we will take what we've gleaned from this, and suffice it to say, it's going to be a whole different ballgame if we have to start the year in this modality, because it'll be a lot different than if we're ending, right? So there'll be different parameters, different expectations, et cetera. But it's a lot of moving parts and negotiating and figuring out what's going to work best. And I, for one, am very proud of our staff for everything that they've done. And I know you are too. So appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Can I also add, I want to point out in case people forget, and it's easy after, I don't know if the pandemic keeps coming by and by, but we were way out ahead of this. I mean, there were other districts that were still sitting around for a week or 2 weeks, still scratching their head, trying to figure out what to do. We were way out. And again, that's to your leaderships, Mr. Superintendent, and the principals, and again, to the teachers and the classified staff that jumped right in and got it going. So kudos. Kudos.
Any other discussion on this?
I greatly appreciate the update. I think surveying is always good. Where can we improve? What can we do better? I kind of agree. We're going to be back in this at some point, somehow, even if it's just shorter term in the fall. So the more we can do to be prepared, the better.
Absolutely.
I feel like, at least personally, like it's getting harder. It's not getting easier. Is that me? Like not that novelty is like a positive word. The novelty is well worn off. It's just getting harder. It's getting harder for everyone. So kudos to everybody for just hanging in there. To parents, to kids, to teachers, to everybody.
You're here. So if we could move on, if it pleases the board, we had another parent who wanted to make a comment, but came in like 3 seconds late. And so I'd like to accommodate her and let her make her comment in between these two items. Is that okay?
That's fine. This is another comment on non-agenda?
Correct.
Yes, please.
And Julie, we're going to need you to translate, I believe.
Okay, so I'm going to unmute Ana Saavedra.
Hello, do you hear me? Ana Saavedra is my daughter. I am Maria.
Oh, that's right. I know Ana.
Yes, we can hear you. Please continue.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hello. My name is Maria Saavedra. So on February 24, I got a phone call from Hillsburg High School about how they administer an alcohol test on my son. The test was negative. I was very upset because the school administered an alcohol test to my son without my permission. They didn't call me before, they called me after, and I didn't like it. So I felt very frustrated. I couldn't believe it that happened to my son. On Monday, February 27, I went to the high school to ask if the school can provide me some answers about why the school can do alcohol tests to the students without parents' permission. But on the 28th, I received some papers from the school, but they gave me papers about policies that did not belong to Hillsburg District. After that, I had a meeting with high school principal, and he provided me a little more clearly papers. Finally, I already spoke with the district superintendent, and he's helping us to fix all the mistakes. But we need your help to change or out of some policies that clearly notify parents about how the school will handle situation with the students who look suspicious. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. This situation is not happy for us. So, but I hope you can help us. Thank you so much.
Gracias, Maria.
Thank you.
And I would like to note, we will be bringing a policy edition in June on this topic, so we can discuss it more then.
Yeah, you already talked to me about it, and I appreciate it. Thank you for your help. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you. Okay. Item 10.1B, this is an update on HAF fundraising and changes for the upcoming year. This is Erin. Do we need to unmute Erin?
And Sally, if we can, please.
And Sally.
Okay, Erin, there's Sally. I need to find Erin. There you go, Erin. And I am going to do this.
All right, whenever you guys are ready.
Great. We have a packed agenda tonight, so I'm going to try to move through this very quickly, but I do want to make sure that folks know that the haste in which I want to go through this is not representative of the work that goes on behind the scenes to raise these funds. So Sally Mackin's with us here tonight. She's the executive director of the Healdsburg Education Foundation. I'm so pleased that she's a part of our team. She's just been a great communicator, wonderful ideas, great partner. Really couldn't ask for more. So I want to thank her for being here tonight, and she's going to pop in about halfway through. But know to the board members as we go through this, if there are any questions for either Sally or I, we're both here and ready to have a conversation. So like I said, we are so fortunate to have Healdsburg Education Foundation. They've been a partner for decades. They have a dedicated team of board members, Sally and Kira as dedicated staff, and work as close as ever with the district to raise funds for our students and these important initiatives. So let's go to the next slide. Wow. How important are these two folks, right? Our bilingual parent outreach and education coordinators. 4 or 5 years ago, when we first realized that this would be an important part of our district, and we started actively thinking about bringing on a position of a bilingual parent outreach and education coordinator, never would we ever think they'd be doing the work that they've been doing over the last 10, 12 weeks. You know, they were already an important part of our district, but now through distance learning, my goodness, I don't know that we could have done what we've done without them. Gigantic kudos to John Jordan Foundation and seeing the value of this for our community and coming through with 100% of the funds both last year and this year to fund this position. The district does provide some joint funding because we now have 2 full-time parent outreach and education coordinators, Alma Diaz and SB. Oh my goodness, I'm going to forget SB's last name.
Nunez.
Nunez, thank you.
You can tell it's been busy. So this is fully funded, and thanks to John Jordan Foundation. Next slide. This has been a long time project and something the district has won awards for and continues to be, you know, kind of a jet setter. Other people continue to come and visit with Shelley Anderson to learn about our internship program and our work-based learning efforts. Again, HEF has fundraised extraordinarily over the years for this for many, many years. This was fully funded. A big thank you to the Rotary Club and also Healdsburg Forever. You will see a note, and we're going to get into this a little bit more towards the tail end, but we are coming up short for fundraising. Unprecedented challenges this year with a fire in the fall that kind of shifted fundraising efforts for our entire region. Also, given where we're at right now, it's been a tough go. So some of these funds are going to support HEF operations with permission from the funders. Next slide. This was a new endeavor this year. This was something that the parent community felt very strongly about, providing paraprofessionals for our 3 kindergarten classrooms and the 2 charter classrooms. We have been able to provide those paraprofessionals this year between HEF funds and district funds for all of the kinder classrooms and the 1st grade classrooms. However, you can see that we're nowhere near our fundraising goal. This has come up short. You know, a lot of reasons why. You know, a lot of it having to do with the stress on the economy, the stress of our families. So we're going to continue to consider whether this will be a long-term fundraising goal for the Healdsburg Education Foundation, or if we need to shift gears on this one. You know, one of the things with HEF that they have been a great partner to help us try new things, to help us pilot, to help us go where district funds can't go on its own. So, you know, we'll be taking stock in this as we, you know, look at our entire budget and staffing of what things are going to look like for this next school year. Next slide. We've had partnerships with the Hannah Institute and the International Trauma Center, and also the National Equity Project to provide professional development this year. Again, it's been a bit of a roller coaster in terms of being able to complete all of the training that we wanted to do. The fundraising for this hasn't been complete. So again, one of these that we're going to be looking at, and possibly shifting gears a little bit to do more in-house training, possibly not be so reliant on outside groups that get expensive. Thank you, as you can see, to the Sonoma County Vintners Fund. They gave a nice $10,000 donation, but we're going to need to reallocate some, we're going to reallocate that to the HEF operations as well, so we can have HEF staff. Next slide. Supporting our English language learners at the high school. This used to be the RFEP mentor. So it started out 4 years ago, just mentoring the RFEP students at the high school. We shifted gears this year to add the current English language learners, most of which are long-term English language learners. So we've had a 0.2 position at the high school. This is in its 4th year, like I said, not only monitoring, mentoring the redesignated English fluent proficient students, but also supporting our long-term English language learners. This was completed, or is being completed, by Carla Fortini this year. This is a successful piece of work. We're excited about the support that our kids get, and we hope we can continue to provide this kind of support in the future. Next slide. HEF has been a longtime partner to support enrichment. Many of you will remember the last budget crisis that we lived through during the recession, where we were slashing everything in all schools. And enrichment was something that very few schools were able to offer on any kind of a regular basis in terms of art and music, fitness, you know, some of the wonderful things like author's workshop that our kids get. And so HEF, for over a decade, I think, has provided funding for enrichment in the K-5. And we're also lucky enough to have a donor-directed gift from the Share family to increase the amount of art enrichment that our K-2 kids have had for the last couple of years. So again, enrichment isn't really going anywhere. It's well supported by the community, by the district, and by HEF. Next slide. So I mentioned early on, there's been a lot of challenges this year. The goal for fundraising through HEF was $351,650. The total disbursement to date will be $162,475. So you can see we're falling short, but unprecedented challenges. The Kincaid fire, we had to cancel, I think, what was it, 3 events, Sally?
Well, yeah. 3. Yeah, I'll speak to that a little bit later, but yes.
Okay. The stock market crash, you know, where all of us saw investments take a tank. The pandemic, limited reserves from past years. So, you know, quite an effort done, and we're happy to have, you know, any amount of extra dollars in the district coffers. And, you know, I don't want to shrug off that $160,000+ were raised for really important work. And I know they're actively working. You know, Sally and Chris Vanden Heuvel and I have had a number of conversations over the last couple of weeks. Sally and team have been writing a lot of great articles and working closely with us and other partners to continue to fundraise. Next slide.
So, thank you, Erin. And I am going to be very unapologetic about this, but I am also going to be very candid in that sharing my disappointment as a seasoned nonprofit executive. This is the first time I've ever not met a goal. So this has been very hard for me, but obviously we are all dealing with unprecedented challenges. My job is to get creative and to figure out how we can continue to do better. So I wanted to speak to some of those items tonight. I'm going to be very brief. Erin, thank you for going through each of the programs. And prior to me joining the staff in September of this past year, HEF had been without an executive director for an extended time. So there really were not a lot of operational reserves. HEF is an organization at a $250,000 a year operational budget, which is extremely lean. And we are going to spend this next year focusing on that to try to build the capacity of the organization so we can become an even stronger fundraising partner of the district. I would like to point out a couple of things. We have a couple of outstanding grants that we had already written prior to the pandemic hitting, and we did get news even last week after we had given this $162,000 number to the district that we have another $10,000 that we've been awarded. We've been able to raise over $50,000 over the last month, which I think is an extremely optimistic sign from our community that they still recognize the importance of this work. And I just want to pass on from my board the commitment that we will continue to fundraise, even if we are not going to make a firm commitment for a dollar amount for next year. We will continue to support through our advocacy and our public relations and marketing, and even ramp that up as we move forward, and just really applaud the incredible work that is being conducted in our district and the way that we've been able to pivot and address the needs of our students. Speaking to the events that were canceled, we did have 3 events that we were planning that we were hoping to fill the gaps in our programmatic fundraising for this year. We also had several events that were canceled that we were the beneficiaries of, like Pigs and Pinot, the Flavors event, and even St. Patrick's Day, that impacted so many of our funders that would have ended up supporting our programmatic fundraising efforts. So all of those things in consideration, the most important thing is HEF will continue. We will continue to be an incredibly dedicated partner of the district, and hopefully we will be a stronger partner and able to adapt to the ever-changing and growing needs of our district as we figure out what the new normal or whatever it is that we're going to be facing is as we go forward. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but otherwise just know that we're here with you in it together.
Erin, why don't we go on to the next slide, and then we can take any questions or comments from the board. So early on, when Sally came into serving as the executive director and early meetings with Chris Vanden Heuvel and I and others, she started making some suggestions that we all really liked and could get behind. And so we're going to continue to move forward with that. And one of those proposed changes you can see here is sketched out a bit. And, HEF relies on a board, very dedicated board of mostly non-educators, community members who want to do right by their community and help fundraise for education. Currently, we have 7 different projects, and you can see, even me running through them quickly, they're sometimes hard to talk to. There's a lot of intricacies. And when you have so many different things going on, it gets hard to keep track of, right? Just like, what are the district goals, right? Right now, I can tell you we're focused on ELD, we're focused on math, we're focused on, a handful of things that are fairly easy to talk about without a whole lot of edu-speak. And that's where we want to get with HEF. Instead of having a laundry list of 7 to 12 different items that board members have to learn and relearn each year, we're thinking about moving to more 3 large focus areas. So we can talk about raising funds for college and career readiness. And for purposes tonight, I did put some bullets there, but I think it's important that as we make some of these shifts, that we're able to speak kind of more broadly and in larger and wider buckets and less edu-speak. So you'll see some of these line item and individual projects start to be more of an internal conversation amongst the professional educators and staff of HEF, and being able to talk more broadly about 3 focus areas. Right now, what we're toying around with is one of the focus areas being college and career readiness. And you can see a lot of long-term and some newer ideas that we've tossed around, like expanding the partnership with 10,000 Degrees would fall under there. Elementary redesign, we know we have done some good work and more work ahead of us to continue to combine our 2 elementary schools. And then climate and culture, and this comes under things like, things like this, things like the parent outreach and education coordinators would come under this, the professional development that we've been doing to promote equity in our school district, and so on. So that's where this is headed. As you heard, HEF and the board are not ready yet to make a firm commitment for funding for the next year, but know that the conversation continues. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide. What we've also found is that there are some funders, some programs that don't want to give money to anything but stuff. They want to give money to capital improvements. HEF, and I want to make sure that everybody hears this, was our first funder to go one-to-one with Chromebooks. So Trustee Popmasil mentioned earlier that we're well positioned to move into distance learning. So much of that had to do with the early work that we did with support from HEF. Our kids had their Chromebooks. We had hotspots. And that is something we probably could not have done 5-6 years ago just with district funds. So, we want to keep that capital improvements wish list when we have particular funders or grant opportunities that want to fund hard materials. So we'll keep working on that. So more conversations to come between all of us, and we can open it up for any questions or comments from the board.
I think this is really a pragmatic approach to things. I think, using this as an opportunity to kind of maybe strategize, and which looks like exactly what you're doing, is really wise. And, anything we get from HEF is just fantastic, right? It's from our community through HEF to our schools, and it's all positive. So I think this is right on.
Well, and I just wanted to speak to Sally to the point that, yes, dollars always are important, and, money talks and whatnot and provides different things that the district can't. But the way that you've reached out on behalf of the district to promote the good work that's being done in the district and the outcomes, I really appreciate that. That goes a long way too. So that in and of itself is worth its weight in gold. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. That means a tremendous amount. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And the level of professionalism that you've brought. And there's just this, for lack of a better word, this just great vibe about all that you bring publicly to about the school district. So I really appreciate that. It's very fresh and encouraging. So thank you.
Couldn't agree with you more, Trustee Kiff.
Yeah, I don't know how to put that, but it's, it's great. Thank you.
So I'd like to add my compliments. I love seeing all of the things and the postings from HEF. You've done a terrific job, Sally. And I like the broad categories and looking at that. It's been my pleasure to be a part of HEF for many, many years now. And thanks.
You have been an incredible supporter, all of you have, and I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, I just want to add, Sally, thank you. I said this to the HEF board. Nobody blames HEF, right, for having a shortfall. We all have gone over an economic cliff. We know this. And we are just incredibly grateful that you are here and on board. And I can't wait for when things start rebounding to see the great work that you are going to do with your board. board. So it's going to be fantastic. We just got to get there. So thank you.
Thank you.
And pass on our thanks
look
to
forward to it.
Kira too. We appreciate all that Kira does.
Absolutely.
She is amazing. Thank
She
you. I
is.
will.
Yes, she is.
Really good. Okay, folks, any other comments? I'll move on to 10-2A, Citizens Bond Oversight Committee Annual Report.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Great. So this is going to be a brief report on the Citizens Bond Oversight, our committee, and our review for the spending for the 2018-2019 year. And we'll go through just a few slides here. You can see our active oversight committee members currently on staff, and I won't go through all this, but I think the main thing to take notice of is we've got a couple of vacancies. We really use community support in helping us fill a couple of these vacancies at the bottom. I think it's great to have as many people viewing the policies and schedules that we have, the finance pieces that come through for just more eyes and seeing what's going on with the high school and the schools here in the community and the build out.
It's worth noting you get private previews of all the construction projects too, tours before everything's done. So
that's the best part.
Yeah.
and I have to say, you know, after hearing Judy, a couple great things that will come out of this pandemic is I think a new respect for our teachers from the kids and from the parents. And the other real blessing coming from this is a quicker start to the construction that's going on at the school right now. So we're going to be able to serve more students with having the projects done at a faster pace.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee is to allow the community to audit the use of bond revenue and where the funds are going. So what we really do as part of our duties is today informing the public on where the funds are being spent, and that we're following the rules outlined for how those dollars are distributed throughout the projects, and only spent on building the projects and you know, labor materials going towards actual build of the projects on hand. But we also want to make sure that none of the dollars are spent on outside items such as teacher or administrative salaries or any other operating expenses. And then annually we put together the annual report and review the financials that come out from the accounting agencies and make sure that we've got everything accounted for and is legitimately spent. So this is a look at our 2018-19 agenda items. We do a tour of the high school. We do a tour of whichever school money is being spent on for the bond funds that have been raised and distributed on the different projects. This year, we've had really reviews of focusing on the money spent on the track and synthetic field, the new gymnasium and girls' locker room, and a couple of really fantastic projects that have been built out and will come to great use in the next coming years. We have it's an update on summer construction projects is another part of our agenda, reviewing expenditures and audits. I've kind of gone over that piece of it. And finally, the review of the prepared annual report. We have our next Healdsburg High School projects coming in, phase 2, which includes the list as follows. I'll go over just a couple of them. Hallway flooring replacements, which has made an incredible difference in the look and feel as you stroll through the hallways of the high school. The new STEM ag classroom, what a wonderful classroom to have future learning. And then there's even small pieces like rekeying the doors, things of that type. Tennis court rehab, which has made an incredible difference, having weeds growing up through the cracks, and the track and field modernization. There's a few photos of the demolition, the initial start, and the transitions between the rehabilitation of the old school structure, the reuse as much as possible, and the build into a new modern structure. And I think the outside speaks volumes for how different the inside looks as well. And the students feel that every time they come into class. Here you have our track and field modernization project going on as well. There's that tennis court. Huge improvement over where it was. So in summary, the results indicated that Healdsburg Unified School District has properly accounted for the expenditures held in the building fund, general obligation bonds, Measure D, election of 2016 originally. And that such expenditures were made for authorized bond projects. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, David.
Any
And committee.
from the board, or it seemed?
Any questions?
Okay. Thank you very much for the update.
Yes, thank you. Always fun.
So Chris, excuse me, Chris, is there a time when we can have a tour of the new auditorium, the new gymnasium?
I'm trying to.
Oh, that's so funny.
I'm getting to there.
All the flooring's being laid down now, so
there it is. Yeah, no, we absolutely can schedule something as long as we social distance while we're doing it. But we did take our bond oversight committee through. It was awesome. So it's a lot of fun to see. We'll get that done. I'm muting myself because there's people outside my window talking, so I didn't want that to distract. So anyway, absolutely. And I want to thank David and everybody. Rose, I think, is
absolutely.
On Mindy Kiff is on it. Those are two new members of the bond oversight committee. It's not a huge commitment, just a little, just trying to get people to join, and you do get to get kind of the inside track on what's going on in the district. And it's kind of a thankless job, so I want to take this opportunity to thank David and his leadership in it, and really appreciate your time,
Yes.
David, overseeing everything.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
It is a great job. And the fun part last week, we got to put hard hats on and go through all the buildings, and the construction workers were still there. So you got to smell the sawdust and smell some of the lacquers they were putting down. But I think it was an amazing sight to see that gym and the thousands of feet of fresh, what is the flooring made out of?
I believe it's maple. Yeah.
Maple, fresh maple they were laying down. It was beautiful to see before they glued it all together, just all the bare sticks out there. So if you want to take a look at the construction going on now is a great time to do it and be a part of the group and seeing it as it progresses. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you, David.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. So item 10 to be the budget update.
Yeah, so this is an update on projected revenues. Karen, I believe, is going to put a slide up. The bottom line right now is that we still don't know much. The good news is that we are a community funded district, funded largely by property taxes. So we're not as tied to the state's budget as many other districts. You have no doubt read the headlines over the last week about the drastic cuts that many districts are facing. We will be facing some cuts as a result of loss of revenues that the state will not be giving us next year, but it is not anything and will pale in comparison to some of our neighbors. And so, we absolutely mourn for what's going to happen in other districts, and at the same time are happy that we're not in the same place. I want to go through how we are projecting our budget currently. Let me just run through the timeline on the state side. Governor Newsom released his May revise on Friday. So that's his revised budget from January. And that was the headline that would now have a $54 billion deficit in California and therefore have to curb spending in the state. He made suggestions for how education should be funded in that May revise. Until from that point to June 15th, the state legislature will be debating the May revise and will be coming up with its own revisions and recommendations. And a budget will pass through the state legislature on the 15th. And then Governor Newsom has several days to approve that budget, to sign off on it himself. So the budget will change, right? So what we found out in the May revise is an indication, but it is going to change. How, we don't know. And so we have to do our best to make sure that we're forecasting as conservatively as possible and as accurately as possible for potential loss of revenues, so that the district can remain solvent and be primed to accomplish its goals in the coming year. So I want to run through how, using all the information that Debbie and I have gotten from both the May revise as well as school services and the Sonoma County Office of Education, how we've sort of prepared for this looming budget crisis. I'll run through each line item with you very quickly. But the bottom line is we still don't know, and we're not going to know until June 20th on anything tied to the state. And I'll talk more as we go. So if you look at the first line item there, unrestricted, in the unrestricted category, we have state aid. That's actually referred to as basic state aid. That's where you get the moniker basic aid. So that's the portion of monies that we receive from the state as a basic aid district still. It's a constitutionally required amount, and it's per student. And so we are currently, in the May revise, Governor Newsom was suggesting a 10% cut to state aid. We're forecasting a little bit higher. I think Debbie's number in there is between 13 and 15%, kind of a just in case number, grows. We believe it is likely, from what we're hearing, that there will be a larger share of cuts that basic aid districts have to incur, sort of as a fair share. And so we want to be prepared for that. Lottery revenue, according to the Sonoma County Office of Education, we should be planning for a significant decrease of lottery revenue. That said, there's already talk that maybe lottery revenues are up. The original kind of logic behind it was that in a pandemic, you don't have a lot, you don't want to go to the store, right? We're all trying to avoid going to the store as much as possible. And we're not ducking into the gas station to buy a lotto ticket and things like that. And so the idea was that lottery monies would be down. These are monies that are only spent on books and materials. So we've got a 20% cut there. We'll find out more in the coming months in terms of how the lottery projects out. Education protection account is another piece of funding that we receive from the state that is kind of associated with basic aid. We've put in a 20% cut there. Currently it's sitting at 10 in the governor's revised budget, but again, we want to make sure that we can absorb any surprise that may come. Better to be conservative in our revenue projections and then, make corresponding cuts and then be able to reinstate them in a month when we find something out differently than to plan the opposite and have cuts that we can't, have revenue losses that we can't actually make cuts for. So on the restricted side of our budget, we have more lottery monies, and it has that 20% cut. And actually every category here, we are projecting a 20% cut currently. So you have our federal title programs, the categoricals, Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV. We honestly don't know how that's going to go, but what we have seen consistently over the last 3 years is those dollars diminish. And we believe that with the money going to stimulus, potentially some of these dollars could diminish even more. And so we've cut them at a 20% clip also. And then we knew this is a loss of revenue, this next category, but it's not something that's a surprise. So before the coronavirus crisis, we made a decision to close the charter school. And we had talked from the beginning that closing the charter school was going to incur a 1-year loss of revenue. And that's about $100,000. And so that is a budget loss or a revenue loss that we have to keep in mind. And so when you look at all of those from the state and federal coffers, it totals $431,800 or $431,000, almost $432,000 in lost revenues. Then we move on to another line item, and this was just highlighted in the HEF presentation, the local donations, basically local revenue sources. And so you see the reality of HEF as well as some other donations that we rely on and budget for not coming through. And so we're going to get hit on those donations this year. And then into the future, we're going to project 0 for now, at least next year, based on the information we're getting from HEF. We don't want to overly rely on donations in a budget crisis. And so we would project 0. So that's a big number that we take right out of the budget there, $458,000. So that brings us to just about $890,000 in lost revenues if this all comes to fruition. I'm hopeful it won't all. Again, we're being conservative and probably overcompensating a little bit, but again, there could be surprises. Finally, we have something in our favor, and the governor's budget actually alluded to the state taking on more of the STRS and PERS burden for the employers, for the districts. And so we are projecting next year that we'll gain $63,000 in terms of the state contributing to employee retirements rather than the district. So they're taking back about 2% on both. So that is a $63,000 savings. So when you add those numbers together, we're looking at a revenue shortfall of $826,000, 841. So almost 827,000 for 2021. Again, this is a projection. This is based on what we know now and taking a conservative approach. Does this mean positions, like we have to cut $826,000 worth of positions? No, it does not. We can curb spending in other ways. I'm not guaranteeing that we won't have to cut some positions, but we haven't even gotten to what we would cut to match the loss of revenue yet. Basically today, I wanted to make you aware of what's going on and get your feedback as to the approach we're taking, because these are tough times, they're uncertain times, and we're taking a fairly conservative approach. Even though SCO did tell us you could go up to 30%, and they were recommending being as conservative as possible. Debbie and I just don't think that is the wisest tack to take. We'd like to kind of be in the middle, take the middle road. So it's not best case, it's not worst case, and hopefully things are a little bit better. Any questions from the board or discussion?
Chris, I wanted to clarify just a couple quick things. One is, I would just like you to restate how it is that you and Debbie chose the percentage that you did. Because I know sometimes there seems to be the question around, I don't know, how we come up with some of these figures. So could you just go over one more time?
On the figure, but some of them are taken straight from the governor's budget plus a little cushion, right?
Okay.
So like state aid, he is projecting, he's currently suggesting 10%. My contacts at the state and everything I've gleaned is it's likely that grows. So we projected, I think it's at like 13.8%.
Okay.
And then SCO very specifically instructed all districts to take a look at their lottery and categorical monies and take out between 25 and 30%. I believe we have it at 20%. Debbie, are you unmuted? Can you clarify that? Or
I have to unmute her. Let me get.
Oh, sorry.
There she is.
Thank you, Chris, for taking the time to do this. I just know it's a question, and we hear it once, but sometimes it's helpful to hear it a couple times.
Yeah, and it's taking what we know and what we think may happen and having a little bit of worst case scenario in there, and then trying to find
personal experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then just listening to the folks who have lived through this before, and so a lot of this comes from Mary Downey, who's the assistant superintendent for the county for business services. She's gone through several recessions as a CBO and knows how to plan for them.
Right.
So based on her experiences and what she's hearing from the state, those are some guiding principles that she gave to all districts in terms of how to prepare for what could be coming.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I do want to reiterate that we are not anywhere close to what's happening in other districts. I have talked to neighboring superintendents of similar sized districts who are having to find a way to cut out $3 million.
Oh.
Larger districts looking at 9 to 10 million. So this is not good, but it is not anywhere near what's happening in your regularly funded LCFF districts. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Chris, when do we know about the federal dollars? Like, when will we know if and what we cut from top?
Aaron, can you unmute Aaron a little bit? She can talk to this, but the federal dollars, what they do is they give us an estimate and then they actually allocate mid-year, and frequently those numbers aren't the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we won't even know till mid-year.
Right. And so we want to plan for what could be a big hit. Again, if a lot of what Governor Newsom's budget was based on was trying to pressure the federal government to help stimulate the economy and bail schools out. And so if some of that money comes back, some of the money will come back to us too, I'm assuming, you know, so some of our state aid and the education protection account, and maybe even the feds will put more money into their categoricals. I don't know. But so
Yeah,
there could be money coming back, and we're going to find a lot out in the next few months.
Yeah, so remember, and I always give an update, usually in September, sometimes in October, it just depends on when the feds give us, pardon me? When the feds give us some numbers we can kind of maybe count on. But the title dollars have been decreasing 10 to 15% every year on year for the last 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
Our Title III dollars are tied to student enrollment. So Title III, let's remember, is for serving English language learners. So we have fewer kids in the district. We have fewer English language learners because they are FEP younger. So that dollar number has gone down, not only because the feds are just putting less in it in all the title monies, but you guys might remember I've shown you graphs over the year in the fall where we just continue to see the titles drop and drop. You know, part of it's politics. Who should be funding what, right? Local control versus federal dollars. So, you know, none of us feel real great that title money is going to change much.
And Chris, when you say state aid, that's the basic aid,
Correct.
Verbiage. That is our property. That's not property tax dollars.
No, that's money that comes from the state. Yeah.
Okay.
And it used to be, we used to get more from the state. You'll recall, this is actually an interesting bit of basic aid history, is during the last recession, the 2008, the Great Recession, they assessed a fair share to basic aid districts, and we ended up losing 1.3 million in that.
Right.
And we're not projecting anything close to that on this, which has us all worried, right? The interesting part is when the economy recovered and all the other schools got their funding reinstated to the levels that it had been at, we never got our fair share back.
Right.
So we just gave it up and let it go. And so that's part of our argument. If they do come after a huge amount more, look, we did our fair share then and you never gave it back. So it'll be an interesting negotiation, certainly. So.
Well, I appreciate how you guys have kind of fallen in the middle. You're not too conservative, too liberal with your, numbers. So I really appreciate that. I think we have to keep a realistic eye on the numbers, knowing what we know.
Yeah, we don't actually have this as a vote today. We have it as a report, but I would love to hear your comfort level with taking this tact, because it is going to dictate how we bring the budget to you next month. So any thoughts or feelings would be great to know.
Well, and Chris, this slide also doesn't talk at all about the property taxes.
No,
We have another slide.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
So,
Karen, can you go to the next one? Do you have the next one?
thank you.
Thank you for that. So property tax revenue. Now this is a guess. This is always a wild guess, right? And so we look at a number of different things. We look at historic trends in the past. I keep my eye on the development that's happening around town, et cetera, et cetera. The natural rate over the last 4 or 5 years for Sonoma County property taxes has been an increase of around 2.5%. In fact, that's what the county is projecting for next year. Healdsburg is a little bit faster clip than the county, as we all can attest. And so we've typically used 4% as a natural. And then if we think something's going to happen or we feel the need to be a little more aggressive, we add on top of that 4%. You will see in the 3-year budget that you're going to be adopting in June, the numbers we had been looking at previously during second interim. If you look at the blue stripe there and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line down, it's the bold 8041 total secured. For 2021, we were forecasting a 3.5% increase, a 4% increase in 21-22, and then we got real aggressive, as we've documented, for a number of different reasons, in our 3rd year out, which is always like, it's monopoly money. We're making things up at that point. It's a far, far away. So we were at 6.4%, but some educational guesses there because there's giant resorts being built in town that will have been online and gone through the supplemental tax roll and then fall into our tax rolls in that year. That said, when we look at the current economic conditions, which is an economy that is shut down and trying to desperately to open up somehow, we don't know what's going to happen, right? Worst case scenario is we stay in some sort of lockdown for months on end. There is no tourism in Healdsburg. Businesses fail, and that will affect home prices, right? None of us wants to see that. None of us is saying that's going to happen, but it could. And best case scenario is things come back online and back to business as normal, and we have sort of a rebound. We looked to the Great Recession and how long it took for property tax dollars to get hit. It took 3 years. So 2008, 2009 is when it hit, and it wasn't until 2011 that we saw significant decreases in property taxes. So Debbie and I felt that if we are going to, we are the people that are in charge, along with the board, of making sure that the district remains fiscally solvent. We cannot stand in front of you in the middle of the coronavirus crisis looking at a 25% unemployment rate that's never been seen before since they started taking unemployment rates. Like, we're guessing it's equal to the Great Depression. And an economy that's totally shut down, and tell you in 3 years we're going to have 6% property tax growth. So we have relaxed our property tax projections that we'd like to use in the initial budget. We are still on the positive, and we're still faster than the natural sort of rate that Sonoma County uses. But it's at 3.5% for 2021, 21-22 at 3%, and then 22-23 at 3%. That is about a 4% change from the other budget, which represents significant dollars, and I acknowledge that. But it is always a moving target to try and predict what our property taxes are going to be, as you know, and we frequently get surprises. They've been good in the last few years at the end of the year. But we just simply can't forecast it. And given the current economic conditions that are really, unprecedented, we have to take a more relaxed view of our property tax income. So again, I'm interested in both the former slide and this slide, your thoughts on how we've projected these revenues.
Well, if I may speak, regarding the property taxes, I think being conservative, 3%, you might even want to go down a little lower, but I can live with 3%, knowing that we don't know yet. I think we're going to be okay this year, but the next couple of years, as you said, we don't know. If the unemployment continues, people sell their houses to get out and get away at a lower price than what they bought it for 5 years ago, whatever. That could hit us. So I'm glad to see you're not at 6.4%, but rather at 3.0%. So kudos to you and Debbie for being thoughtful in that respect. We certainly don't want to pretend that the money's coming in, even though we can hope that it does. And if it does, then that's great. Regarding the previous revenues, et cetera, I know we have to wait till June 15th. And you've been through it many times. I've been through it a few times, and it's always, but I thought they said, I thought the governor said this, and you're right. It's absolutely the politics of now, it's not the Congress, whatever we call those people.
Legislature. Yeah.
Thank you, legislature, thank you. It's really kind of up to them, and hopefully what the governor said holds. I think it was very generous of him to put education at the forefront of his budget. But we have to be cautious at this point, because we can't walk in, we can walk in hopeful, but we also have to be very realistic. So I think, again, I think you're in the middle you're on the middle road, and I think that's a good place to be, because we want to be a little hopeful, but we got to keep it real tight. And now we may come back. I know we have a meeting the 17th, but we may have to have a meeting after that to readjust as we go forward into next year. But I think this looks good, and I'm pleased that it's somewhat conservative. And again, in my opinion, you could even be more so. But thank you.
One thing you brought up is I didn't mention, we do believe we're going to be okay on property taxes this year. So from what we understand, they were collected nearly completely. We don't know the percentage increase we're going to get yet, but we were very nervous that there would be some delinquent property taxes that would then translate to less dollars for the district, and that's not going to be the case. So we should be close to our projection, maybe even a little higher. We'll see. But we do not know what to do with the future years, and that's what we're talking about tonight. So.
Well, and I appreciate your research on that too, because just because this year looks okay, doesn't mean the next 2 years are going to be as promising or encouraging. It could be just the opposite. So I agree with Mike that it's a conservative approach, which is what I think we are obligated to take. We just have to.
Yeah.
And adjust as we go along.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that we are in the middle of a very, very uncertain time and cannot project it very much into the future. So, thank you.
Well, thank you all. I appreciate your thoughts and your guidance. So.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Kevin, ready?
Any other comments or questions about the budget? And Chris, what else do you need from us? I mean, I think there's a general consensus that we are agreement around the conservative approach to the predictions that we make every year, but even harder to do now. We'll know more from the state at the end, toward the end of June.
Yeah, and then we'll know more on property tax. You know, we'll know in August on property tax revenue for this year.
Right.
In terms of future years out, it's, you know, that's going to be a wait and see and guess how the economy does in the next 6 to 8 months, right? Do we go back into lockdown in December? Do we ever emerge from this lockdown? There's a lot of who knows what is going to happen. So a lot of ifs that we are going to have to work through and just watch.
So I do not show any public comment for this item. Just wanted to make that note.
So let's, related as the next two items, this has to do with the exact same thing, but with cash flow. So Debbie, you want to explain?
Yeah, the first resolution here is to allow us to transfer money between funds, because all of our funds have to be at a positive cash on June 30th. And they won't be, so we'll have to transfer funds from, you know, money from one fund to the other, so the cash is all positive.
So part of the budget process with the state is they're going to defer giving money that's owed to the districts for a month or two, and therefore we're going to be cash strapped. And so just like, you know, when you're close to overdrawing your checking account, you move some from savings over to take care of that. That's what we're going to do. And then the state will eventually give us our money and we replenish. But this just allows us to borrow money from certain funds to keep all funds in the black.
Which we have to do.
It is something we do every year.
It is something we do
more important this year.
Right.
Yes.
Bigger numbers.
Yes.
So do I have a motion for this resolution?
So moved.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right. So this is a resolution. Karen, will you?
Yes. Trustee Potmasil?
Aye.
Trustee Velasquez?
Aye.
Trustee Kiff?
Aye.
And Trustee Del Rey?
Aye.
Thank you.
And 10.2D, another resolution, Chris?
Debbie?
Resolution is, this one is making transfers between funds so we can pay all of our expenditures at the end of the year. This one isn't so much about the cash. This is about budget and making sure we have the money in the right accounts to pay our invoices and expenditures.
Okay. I move that we authorized Resolution 2034.
I'll second.
Okay, and Karen, roll call vote for resolution.
Trustee Potmasil?
Aye.
Trustee Velasquez?
Aye.
Trustee Kiff?
Aye.
And Trustee Del Rey?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, 10.3A, Aaron. This is English language development update.
Okay, I have to unmute Aaron.
Okay, so we've been doing monthly updates on our English language development program since for many months, including the external evaluation. So This is the monthly update. We have gotten quite a bit of work done. You know, the last update was a little thinner than I think we all would have liked, but given we had spent that 6 weeks transitioning to distance learning, we have been able to kind of focus a bit on next year and taking stock and making some plans. So let's go ahead to the next slide. What we have been focusing on is our plan for designated ELD. So, you know, reminding ourselves, combing through that external evaluation. We've had a number of phone calls in consultation with Jen Guerrero, who's the county office lead of English Learner Services, and also with Sarah Lundy, who is our continuous improvement director at the county office. So leveraging the expertise of our county office, which is always helpful. You know, they get to see first glances at any new rules, regulations, and they also get to see what's going on around the county. So they've been helpful. We have received some guidance from the CDE Language and Policy and Leadership Office through Dr. Chris Nichols. We've had a few questions that even the county office couldn't answer for us, and some recommendations that we wanted to hear. So we did get some written recommendations from the California Department of Ed. Obviously, we've been talking to our colleagues around the county, paying a whole lot of attention to our data. We talked last time about students who are double or triple identified. So they are English language learners, as well as being a student with a disability, and or are a low-income student, that they're socioeconomically disadvantaged. So trying to think hard about the, you know, the multifaceted aspects of our children's lives and how that impacts their educational opportunities. Having conversations with teachers as much as possible. You know, I'll be honest, it's been hard in this format. One of the things I love about my job is that on every single day, I used to get to talk to teachers and see kids learn, and that's not something that's happening for me right now, every now and then. You know, so teacher input has been there, but not, you know, I'll be honest, we wish it was stronger, and we wish we could have more conversations. Both myself and the principals have been talking about that. And then lastly, you know, we have to keep our federal and state requirements in mind. So to that end, let's go to the next slide. This is a screenshot you can see from Dr. Nichols' external evaluation. And, you know, it's a 60-page document. We've been going backwards and forwards through it, reminding ourselves, digging deep into it. And just to remind all of us that, you know, there is what everybody calls the dual obligations and a three-pronged test of Castaneda and Picard. And this really has to guide what we do. This is law, bottom line. So we're constantly reminding ourselves and kind of thinking, are the decisions that we're making in line with what is called for here in these decisions? So next slide. Again, this is taken from the ELA/ELD framework. This is on page 106 of the framework. It's a nice visual that helps us remember that we must provide designated ELD to students and that it not sit in isolation. We worked really hard to make sure that designated ELD incorporates the core subjects, and that it's not just learning language for language sake, but learning it in context with the subject areas. And, you know, I would say if you go into our classrooms, you know, Irma Figueroa and Karen Reynolds in the 3rd grade, always, every single time I go into their classrooms, there's a perfect example of this going on. So this is guiding our thinking and reviewing both ourselves and our teachers of what's in our guiding documents. Next slide. So here's some plans. Right now, we are hoping, fingers crossed, and whether we're doing this in our classrooms, which we hope at some point we'll return to full-time, or we're doing a hybrid program, worst case scenario, full-on distance learning. But right now, we're planning on normal, right? What would we do as if school was going to be opening up for normal? So the first 30 minutes of every day at Healdsburg Elementary, TK through 2, will be a designated ELD block period. Those groupings so the students will group and regroup between the 3 or 4 classrooms. So we have, right now, we go between 3 and 4 kindergarten classrooms every year. Right now, we're projecting 3 kindergarten classrooms, 4 first grade and 4 second grade classrooms. So regrouping and grouping first thing in the morning in order to meet students' individual needs. So that's when we'll use a mix of the designated ELD materials from the core adopted curriculum, which is Journeys. So Journeys is a curriculum that has designated materials. It's one of the reasons we purchased it. And we also, you know, after doing really high quality ELD, particularly in the elementary school for a nearly decade, you know, as Dr. Nichols encouraged us, we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We'll continue to use much of what we've done in you know, teacher created material and the supplemental, you know, it's called supplemental because it's not the core material like Journeys, but it will still be a central component of what we've been doing. So our methods mix, verb tense study, morph house, single picture story frame, you know, many of the wonderful methods that we've learned over the last nearly decade. So that's what it's going to look like at Healdsburg Elementary.
So Erin?
Yeah.
When you say first thing in the morning, the kids would go to their homeroom, their regular classroom, and then within a few minutes would be regrouped.
Correct. You know, they haven't had a time to like really have these deep conversations as a staff.
So
but
okay.
That's the theory, that they would do a morning circle, get everybody settled in, you know, a little check-in, and then they would group and regroup based on language level. Yeah.
Okay. So not the first 30 minutes that have 15, 20 minutes to do the.
Right. Yeah. Of instruction. I should say of instruction.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. It's a good clarifying, as you know, when you get little guys in, there usually takes a little time before instruction happens.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. The FMC student population is worth discussing, right? And discussing how we provide education has to be done in context of who the students are that we serve. So Erica and the teachers and I have been looking at and reminding ourselves that we know who they are in our hearts, but let's look at the data and make sure that what we think as educators is true in the data. So just to, you know, let everybody know, roughly, well, right now, today, 72 of the 275 students at FMC are English learners. So a little snapshot of our kids to date. We shared this before that roughly in the district, 90%, and at FMC, 92% of FMC English learners are also socioeconomically disadvantaged, live in poverty. As we saw on the earlier slide, we get Title I funds. We do take Title I funds from the feds. That is to serve low-income students, all low-income students, regardless of language. So Title I funds, traditionally in Healdsburg, we've used them to provide paraprofessionals for that small group instruction. So the vast amount of Title I funds goes for paraprofessionals. We also are able to provide additional counseling services through Leslie Charlesworth, and our pull-out reading intervention teachers are paid in part from Title I money. So yeah, I'm going to take a little bit of a bird walk back to the budget. When I first started in this district about 5 years ago, we had nearly $500,000 in Title I funds that came from the feds. We're projecting a little over $200,000 for next year. So in that amount of time, Title I funds from the feds, and this is to some degree student enrollment, but more of it is just prioritization of what the federal dollars are going to. So I think it's important to understand that the kids are as, if not more needy, but we have less targeted categorical funds to provide for those students. So going to the next bullet, something that's, I think, interesting for some people to understand is that particularly in the upper, as the kids get older and we start to understand their learning needs more, we understand that it's not just about being a bilingual student. It's not just about being a dual language learner, but many of our students receive outside support because they have a learning disability. So an example here of the 22 fifth graders, we have 22 fifth graders right now. So 22 of those 72 are fifth graders. 8 of those students have an IEP, and 64% of those 22 kids receive intervention support either through reading or RSP program. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that just doing 30 minutes of quickie ELD, particularly as kids get older, and I don't want to diminish what we're doing at HES, but as kids get older and their learning needs get more complex, we need to look at the complexities of them. And so that's what we're trying to do here at FMC. Next slide. So right now the plan, if and when we are able to go back, as it will happen, full-time in our classrooms, what we're hoping to do is 2 days per week, provide a 45-minute block of designated ELD during Spanish enrichment. So these students have a base level of Spanish, it's their home language. Right now, the Spanish language program that we can provide at our elementary schools is not a dual immersion program, it's enrichment. So we know that we have to make concessions somewhere. And right now we feel like this is the safest concession. We don't want kids to miss science. We don't want kids to miss math. We need to make sure that we provide the core subjects for all of our kids. So the 2 45-minute Spanish block is a place to start. So each teacher roughly will have about 6 to 8 English learners in their classroom. So when we combine the 2 elementary schools, and the kids are RFEPing in 2nd, 3rd grade. So you can, 22 out of the 75 or so 5th graders. So that small group of 6 to 8 kids will stay back with their classroom teacher and be provided designated ELD during that time. Also on Wednesdays, we're gonna do the grouping and regrouping, but it'll be for a longer period of time. So not just a half an hour. We think that younger kids, shorter periods of time, 5 days a week. They're wiggly, they're younger, the sustain to learn is not as long when you're young. So on Wednesdays, the entire grade levels will group and regroup and receive an hour of designated ELD. So all of our teachers across the entire campus, whether you be a 5th grade STEM specialist or a 3rd grade humanities, you will have a grade level group of students that you will be providing language support enrichment. So your English learners will get designated ELD. Students who are English only will be receiving differentiated instruction. It won't be the core instruction, it will be differentiated instruction based on their needs. So we'll be able to accelerate some students. There'll be, typical students that will need other supports and other differentiation based on who they are and what their learning is. So I alluded to this last piece about that, we have a strong belief after looking at our data, looking at our kids, looking at our program, our curriculum, that doing these 2 45 minutes with small groups and their classroom teacher, along with 1 hour for everybody throughout the week, is the best way to go. Minimizes impact in terms of moving kids around, having some similar strategies, and also providing a cohesive school around we are all teachers of English language learners, and that we'll all be playing a role in it. So that's the plan for FMC.
Aaron, can I ask you a question? And this is just my memory, can consider the source. Is there a requirement, or was there, or there used to be, in the framework of so many minutes per day?
There is not. Thank you for asking that. There is not a number of minutes per day. It is based on what you think is best. We have to provide designated ELD. We know that, but we are not told how long or what curriculum to use. It used to be. There used to be. You might be remembering, Mike, from it was about 10 years ago, that it was dictated that it was a minimum of 30 minutes every day, but that is no longer.
Okay, that's where my mind goes back to. So okay,
Yeah.
so there's no. Is there a number per week? I mean, it's like 10 minutes a day. They would say is fine.
There's no, and that's part of what that's one of the questions, Mike, that we're Trustee Potsman saw that we were asking the CDE. We wanted to be absolutely certain that we weren't missing something, and we ran our plan by Dr. Nichols. We ran our plan by the SCO specialist. We ran our plan by the CDE, because we wanted to make sure that this was, you know, this is what we thought was best for our kids, given our data and given our time.
Sure.
And, you know, the really cool thing is particularly the woman from the CDE, she was very supportive of this and said, you know, I like how you're thinking about the complexity of your kids. And she said to us at one point, you know, the easy thing is to just do 30 minutes a day, right? That doesn't take a whole lot of planning. What you guys are doing is thinking deeply about what your kids need, how you can do it. So we had a little bit of kudos from the CDE on this one.
Well, I think it gives you opportunities to, I'm not sure this is the right word, but to dig it a little deeper, not just in the words, but the meanings and how the English language works, et cetera, you know, all this stuff. I just think, you know, it provides some opportunity.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going. We got a long night ahead of us. Next slide.
Sure.
So again, this is from Dr. Nichols' PowerPoint presentation that she gave to us back in March.
Right.
So reviewing this and wanted to, in particular, pay attention to number 2 and 3, and that we are spending time digging into the documents, right? These are hundreds of pages. And when they first come out, we look at them and we go to workshops and then we go on our merry way. But we're digging back into them and refreshing our memories. So next slide. To that end, this was a recommendation from Dr. Nichols. We are planning, Jeff Franey, the principal at Hillsburg Elementary, and Erica McGuire and I have talked with our curriculum providers. We've had some conversations with them about coming back and training us on the designated and integrated ELD materials in our core curriculum. So we do have training set up in August for both Journeys to come and spend a full day with us, and for Benchmark to come to FMC and spend the full day. So we've got 2 days in August for PD. So one of those 2 days for elementary will be spent really focusing in on our core curriculum and what it has in it for both designated and integrated ELD. Next slide. So to kind of recap there and shift a little bit is the professional development. So it's one thing to plan time. It's another to have high quality curriculum, but we need to make sure that we understand it. So just this past Monday, Jen Guerrero provided a PD for all of the elementary teachers, and most of the paraprofessionals and other support staff were also on a Zoom. This is something we would have much preferred to do in person, but Jen kind of went with us and rejiggered her PD session, trimmed it down. It was to be a 3-hour. We trimmed it down to an hour and a half, because all of us know after tonight, sitting on a Zoom for more than an hour and a half is always not always that fun. So they were trained, our teachers were trained just this Monday in reviewing, you know, it's an hour and a half, you can get a ton done, but I think it was, if you talk to the teachers, it was nice to kind of get back into those documents and refresh our memories a little bit. And then we'll do that for the junior high and the high school once we get back into our buildings. We are going to, so bullet number 2, we are going to continue with the PBL Works training. So we have 3 days of live virtual training. They are going to pull it off. So Buck Institute for Education has been doing this kind of training for decades. They are ready and willing to do this virtually. So our teachers, June 8th, 9th, and 10th, will be doing 3 full days. And again, Erica and Jeff and I, the principals of the elementary, have spoken at length with our trainer who's going to be with us, and really helping her understand who we are as a school district, that we have a deep relationship with PBL through our charter school, but we also have some teachers who don't have as much experience with PBL, that we have deep experience with English language learning, but we're making some shifts and making some changes. And so here, these are a few documents, and if you're on the electronic version of our board packet. These should link to these documents. So these will be documents that our teachers review with the trainer on June 8th, 9th, and 10th. And I already mentioned that last bullet about the journeys and benchmark folks coming on August 14th, that Friday of our PD. So we've got some good stuff already scheduled. Next slide. We've had a relationship with Navigator Schools. You guys might remember Navigator Schools are Gilroy Prep and Hollister Prep. They've been working with us. This is the two schools that we borrowed a lot of the blended learning aspects of our elementary program. And we're continuing to work with them. One of the things that Navigator is so good at is their small group instruction. They think deeply about how to make the most of a small group instruction. And to leverage the paraprofessionals, what they call small group instructors, in that small group instruction. So they are working with us, guiding us. They actually made a campus visit. James Dent, who is their brilliant mastermind, their visionary, was on our campuses right before COVID hit and visited a number of our classrooms to see station rotation and small group instruction happening. Reviewed our curriculum and is making some recommendations on how do we get the most out of that small group instruction. So that's been really focused on the K-5. In grades 6 through 12, we are in conversation with QTEL. It's an element of West Ed, Quality Teaching for English Learners, and also EL Achieve, to support PD at the junior high and the high school. It looks like we're probably going to go with EL Achieve at the high school level. They have some great training opportunities. They're on the lower cost side. I'm going to be honest, right now we're kind of moving slow with this until budget gets a little more clear. Working with organizations like this are very expensive. It's anywhere from $3,000 to plus $1,000 a day when their professionals come and work with us on our campuses. So right now, this is a lot of conversation about what could be and planning with the junior high and high school administration to make sure that what we need is what they can deliver and that the price point is right, given where our budget is. So we're kind of moving slow right here on this one. Next slide. But we do have a plan for the high school. Not huge changes. We've had designated ELD classes at junior high and high school, as we should. And the one change, and we think it's a blip, but we have more ELs at the high school, projecting more ELs at the high school next year than we have had in the past. And we saw in the external evaluation that we need to get better at making sure that we provide targeted instruction based on the students' levels. So at both the junior high and the high school level, I've mentioned to you all in the past that we have very small number of ELD level 1, some people call newcomer students, anywhere from 2 to 6 students max. And sometimes we, just because of the small size, they're in a level 2 or level 3 class. But we're gonna kind of rejigger the schedule, and we're adding a section of ELD to both the junior high and the high school next year. So the last couple of years, we've had a 0.6 at the junior high. I mentioned this last meeting, sorry. And then we'll be doing the same at the high school. So we're increasing teacher allotment at both the junior high and the high schools from 0.6 to 0.8. So we can make sure that we're not having to shove kids in a level that they may not be quite ready for or as served as well as they could be. And just like at the junior high, an increased focus on integrated ELD. And again, when 60+% of your kids are bilingual, it's important that all teachers of all subjects see themselves as language teachers, as integrating the language development for students. So we'll be focusing on that when we get back. So that's the update I have for ELD. Any comments, questions?
I'll just make a comment quickly. I'm very pleased at what I see. You know, obviously, you and the site administrators and the instructors have definitely taken Dr. Nichols' recommendations to heart. I'm sure it's frustrating to have to do this distance-wise, but I look forward to great results, and I appreciate your hard work on this. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Aaron. That's tremendous. And I loved the idea or the information about using the curriculum that we already have and maximizing the way that they approach some of this, and using some of their professionals to maximize what we already have. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I really like the idea that they're going to get, our teachers are going to get lots of attention focused on all of the different subject areas and ELD. It seems to me to be a very natural way to teach and expand English abilities in subject areas as opposed to.
Yeah, great.
Aaron,
Looks really good.
Would you anticipate any changes to how we're measuring success with?
That's a great question. You know, I think as Dr. Nichols pointed out in her presentation and in the report, that our student achievement data is very strong. You know, we tend to outperform in just about everything she could look at. Number of kids that take AP, number of kids at RFEP, and everything in between. I think what's important is not only the academics, but the social emotional as well, right? I think that that's something that we haven't done a good job of measuring and paying attention to, and not just seeing kids as a data point and a number. And, you know, well, they are FEP'd in the second grade, or, well, they're in AP, all good, right? And patting ourselves on the back, but really considering the whole child and their whole experience and tapping into that social emotional part. I think we need to get better at, not only for English language learners, but for all of our kids, particularly as we come back after being in a pandemic. So my kind of off the cuff, I haven't done a whole lot of deep thinking about that, and we haven't had a whole lot of conversation just yet as a district leadership team, but my kind of gut and sense of it is that that's something we've been trying to lean into as a district, is paying attention to that social emotional piece and sense of community and belonging. And I think we need to get better at understanding that and measuring that element of our kids' lives.
Well, and I think we all share the, I don't know, concern, maybe not the word, that a shift in our programs, we want to keep those numbers up. We want to keep the RFEP designation numbers up. And again, yes, it's only one part of the puzzle, but we certainly don't want it to go down. We don't want, and so as we make these changes, which are pretty major, maybe think about is, how are we measuring our success? Maybe what we're doing right now is fine, but it's going to be different. I mean, it's a good thing. I think you're right that overall it's a more holistic and integrated approach to our students overall, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, but we'll continue to monitor that achievement data, RFEP percentages. I mean, that's something we've gotten pretty good at over the last 5 or 6 years. We can rattle, most of the administrators can rattle those numbers off of the top of their heads, when you're walking the hallways with them. But so we're not going to lose sight of that achievement data piece, and continuing to monitor and measure. Yeah.
Aaron, ask a quick question. This came up at, I think, one of the ELAC meetings, was in that we're in the pandemic and testing has been forestalled or eliminated. How do we go about RFEPing some of these kids that are right on the board or maybe even ready to be, but we just can't do that? Do you have a timeline on that or any idea what that might look like?
Yeah, so, we cannot by law RFEP kids unless they get that 4 in the LPAC.
Right.
There have and continue to be murmurs about there being the opportunity for districts to administer the summative LPAC that would normally have taken place in the spring in the fall for the kids. So our teachers, just talking to Erica McGuire yesterday about it, I said, how many kids you got on your list that if they let us do the summative LPAC in the fall, would we want to test? So we have taken another look at our kids. Thankfully, our junior high students did get through the test. So we're awaiting LPAC results for our middle school kids. So we'll be able to RFEP them. And, the other big crew of that comes from the FMC campus, right? So Erica's got her list. If they let us give that summative test in the fall, we'll do it and move forward from there.
Okay.
Erin, what about these 15 to 17 level 4 high school kids? I mean, that's not just a few,
Yeah, so they're mostly 9th and 10th graders. So one of Dr. Nichols' recommendations was to, even if kids are at the same ELD level, think about having the 9th and 10th graders in one room and 11th and 12th graders in the other room, right?
Yeah,
We don't have enough kids to do that. But out of that 15 to 17, I think all but 2 or 3, Connie Marks could tell you better, are 9th and 10th graders. So that to say, so they're on the young side in high school, but they also are all our kids that we've had for the most part since kindergarten, right? These are long-term English language learners that have been through our system. So one of the things that we're going to probably do with EL Achieve, if the number is right and the budget comes in a decent way, is look at the curriculum that we've been using with the junior high and particularly the high school kids, because they hit this point and then they just flatline. Yeah. So that's of concern that we've got high school aged kids that haven't RFEP'd yet.
Right. Okay.
So we have been using benchmark assessments all along with our EL students. Will be continuing to do that in these designated ELD classes.
Yeah, so that's something that our core, the EL assessments that we've been using had come from Heidi Koski Consulting.
Right.
We have not used those in the last 6 months or so. We didn't do T2 using those. We will likely be using a combination of the assessments that all of our kids take, and then the core curriculum and Benchmark Advance in particular just came out this past year with designated ELD assessments. So we need to look at that, to be honest, Judy. We don't have it nailed down. We don't have it decided of what that kind of benchmark formative assessment process will look like. So we get good data from STAR. We get good data from some of the other classroom assessments that go on, Dibbles, for example. But a designated ELD assessment, we do not yet have our finger on, to be completely honest.
But we're going to be looking at.
Yeah.
My concern is that we keep doing those formative assessments all the way through, so that when LPAC comes around, we're not surprised.
Yeah. Yeah.
We know.
Yeah.
We pretty much can predict which kids are going to get that 4.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Good point. I appreciate your
Help
comment.
those that aren't there. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Should we move on to summer school?
Yes. Thank you. This is really helpful, and it's an amazing amount of work in a really short and weird time.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I just want to say to the teachers in particular that are here with us tonight, we wish we were having more collaborative conversations. We wish this was easier. I wish I could be walking the halls and chit-chatting with you, and so do your principals. And, we have conversations, and then the principals are saying, let me go talk to my teachers. Give me a minute. It's just not as easy to have those collaborative conversations with everybody. So I just recognize that.
And hopefully when we all start to get back together, that time can be used to fine tune and
Yeah, I mean, there has obviously been some teacher input, right? This isn't in a vacuum, but not as much as I think all of us would like.
Yeah.
I just wanna make a note. I've checked the chat and there is not any public comment for this item, so we can move on to the next.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, summer learning. Not like summer loving. This is
summer learning.
Yeah.
All right, let's just jump right into it. Let's go to the next slide, Karen. So we are going to take our first dive here into doing a pretty structured distance learning program in the summer. You know, I think we all know that what we've done over the last 10 weeks was our best effort, certainly, right? I have no doubt that our teachers have done everything that they can to support our kids and the parents that are helping them at home. But we also were faced with a hold harmless grading policy that we know was the right thing to do. But it changes things, right? It changes engagement. It changes parents freaking out about what their kids are learning and not learning. So we are going to press forward with providing a high school credit recovery program. A lot of this is what was planned before. So 6 months ago, we planned 2 3-week sessions taught by HUSD teachers. In the past, we would do 2 3-week session only on Play-Doh online, led by 1, maybe 2 teachers. So all kids were assigned an online learning class through Play-Doh, and it was monitored by a single teacher for up to 25, 30, 40 kids. So we are going to rejigger this. We've hired some spectacular high school teachers, and I think I have their name on a slide here in a minute. So 2 3-week sessions, students can earn up to 2 semesters of credit. So this is more traditional. You know, when I was a high school science teacher, this is the way we did it. We did 2 3-week sessions. You taught from about 9 to noon. Kids went home, did a bunch of homework, came back the next day, and we hit it again. So the hybrid of live teacher-led online learning. So much of what we've done in the last 10 weeks is what's called asynchronous, where teachers are taping things, there's help one-on-one, but what we're going to try to do here is both asynchronous and synchronous learning. So let's go to the next slide. We have up to 100 students that we have made personal, I shouldn't say we, that Connie Marks, for the most part, has made phone calls to. Bilingual in a lot of ways, and a lot of the phone calls. So we've reached out to 100 individual students and their families, inviting them personally to summer school. We've got about 80 enrollment forms completed by students, and their parents have signed off on it. So we have 80 kids signed up. We know there's going to be some attrition, right? Let's just be honest. There's high school kids that are like, yeah, Ms. Marks, I'll be there, get my parent to sign it, and they're not going to show up, right? So we've got 80 enrolled. We know we'll have some attrition. And we've got some great teachers. You can see the lineup here: Dennis Ojeda Jones, Jamie Atwood, Riley Nelson, and Josh Kavanaugh will be manning the online coursework with a bunch of help from Connie Marks. So rather than that being all on the backs of one teacher, we've got some superstars here. We're also going to be providing a bilingual paraprofessional for the teachers and students. One thing that we've realized, and a lot of our paras have been doing over these last 10 weeks, is that kids still need one-on-one. They still need an adult to text with, or to phone call, or do a Zoom and say, let me work that problem with you. Let me unstick you. Let's just, how'd you get that? Let's have a conversation about it. So we'll be providing a paraprofessional to continue to do some small group and one-on-one work with our kids, and a bilingual school secretary who's going to chase these kids down and make sure if they don't log in first thing in the morning, we know why. So let's move to the next slide, because what we're going to ask our teachers and our students to do is an online roll call every morning. Kids are going to be expected to show up in an online classroom like we are right now, sometime between 9 and 9:20 every day. So we'll get them going. We'll do some check-ins, right? How you doing? You got any questions? Check in that time. The teachers will provide some online direct instruction, And not to say that it's going to happen for an hour and a half, 9:20 to 11. There may be some like, okay, I'm going to teach for 20 minutes. We're all going to turn our cameras off. You're going to work, and then we're going to turn our cameras back on. So we're having conversations with our teachers about how do you do direct instruction online in shorter periods. And you know, a student could be working on their desk, turn their camera on and say, hey teacher, I need help. And just like in the classroom, the other kids are going to hear what that conversation is, but they could keep their cameras off and continue to work. So we're playing around with getting better at using the technology, but also providing instruction, bottom line. Then we'll take a break, everybody will log off, and then the teachers are talking about doing small group support for students. And this is where you know, they might do a reading group or they might do a little lab. So Riley's already talked about the labs that she wants to do, getting some base materials that kids can do stuff at home with. So that's what the summer school day, so we'll be able to dip our toe in this water a little differently and a little more structured. This is not hold harmless grading, right? The boys and girls have been told you're starting from zero. So you got to be there and you got to be learning and turning in your work. Next slide. So before I move on, any questions about the high school credit recovery program or any comments? No. Okay. We are going to continue to partner with Migrant Ed as we have. We've partnered and Ever Flores has been a critical part of this. He has served as the principal director of the program in collaboration with SRJC. But given that the SRJC is not running in-person classrooms at all, right? They've called it for the fall. We're not going to be sending high school kids there for the summer either. So they too are rejiggering, and we will be providing some amount of learning through the Adelante program. So there are some kids that may have been eligible for our summer school program through Healdsburg High. We're going to see whether it's a better fit if they're a migrant student to be served through this program. So the summer school principal, Connie Marks, is working with the Adelante program right now to figure out who, you know, where best served the kids will be depending on who they are and what their needs are. Next slide. The K-8 migrant program, we've collaborated with the Windsor Unified School District, and they have over 200 migrant students in K through 8 in Windsor, and we have a very small number, max 25, some years it's 20. And so Windsor's still trying to decide. Last I talked to them last week, you know, they're hopeful and they keep pushing their dates out into July, but we needed to make a call with our grant application, what we were going to do, because the grant application was due 2 weeks ago. So we shifted gears in our grant application. We called it for a summer program and wrote up a grant proposal that we will provide a morning boost for students and or an extended day. So we know that kids have a loss of learning. And we know that kids who are living in a migrant situation may have more need than ever before. So what we're hoping, if the grant comes in, is that we could provide an early or a late bus route for these students to bring them in half an hour early, let them stay half an hour, 45-minute late. So we put money in to run extra bus. Extra staff time to pay staff to provide that supplemental and extended learning day. We'll need some supplies. If they're coming in early, they need a breakfast, so we put some money in for that, or a snack in the afternoon. So that's the plan for serving our K through 8 migrants during the school year. Bishop's Ranch has been phenomenal. And I'll say Greta, who I think is here with us tonight, they're going to make this happen some way, somehow. Our kids are going to get served through Bishop's Ranch, whether I like it or not. Greta has just been, you know, we're going to make this happen. The staff up there has said, we're going to make this happen. So we did push the date out. This had been set for July 6th. We decided last week to set the date for July 20 through 24th, hoping that maybe by then we won't be sheltering in place. We're pretty certain we'll still be social distancing, but if we're not having to shelter in place, then they might be able to do something where the campers come to FMC and they meet the camp counselors in a socially distanced way, and they get a box from their camp counselor with art, science, outdoor games. They too have made the commitment, and again, Greta trying to help us figure this out, of possibly bringing family groups up to the ranch. I mean, we all know, if anybody's been up there, the magic of Bishop's Ranch is the property itself. It's a stunning, beautiful place that I think as soon as you get up there, you feel better. So possibly if we can bring smaller groups, family groups up there for some type of recreation and outdoor time. We are going to limit the number of students. We normally would serve about 50 kids through this. So we're currently going to target 20 to 30 students, and those kids will get their applications next week. So we're going to target 20 to 30 rising 4th, 5th, 6th graders to take part in this program. So I'm just pleased we're going to be able to do something for them. It'll be different, but I think it'll still be worth our while. Next slide. A new program we've talked about doing for many years in this district, and Principal Jeff Franey and his kindergarten teachers are willing to, again, try to pull this off in whatever shape of form it happens. So we're keeping this one on the books. It might be an hour or two in the morning and socially distant. It could be 3 days, but we want to continue to keep this on the planning pile and keep talking about it and try to find a way to make it happen. To get our kinders in for a short period of time to do an academic assessment. Some of these kids we know because they've been with us for TK, but majority of them we don't. We want to do a play-based evaluation. We want to watch them play so we can make sure that we slot the classes appropriately, do some parent training, talk about what kindergarten drop-off looks like, and that you drop and leave. You don't take pictures and hug and cry. Anybody that's been at that campus on Kinder Day it's emotional. So we want to do some parent training about what that first day and kind of what being in a public school system looks like. So again, this is still lots of TBD, but we're going to keep this one on the planning pile for now. Next slide. The chamber called it as soon as the businesses said there's no way we can host kids, we're sheltering in place. I'm trying to keep my business alive. So the STEM Academy will not be happening. And our summer learning program that we would normally do for 3 weeks in July, we just don't have the assurance that we can do it safely and do it well. And I think that that's an important part for me and our educators, that if we're going to do it, we want to do it well. Our kids are tired, our parents are tired. Doing a distance learning program for little kids it's tough, and it's tough to do it well. So, I'm making the joke, I'm a parent of a 4th grader. Let's let them eat some popsicles and play on the slip and slide. And, we'll take them as they come when they come back. And that's what we do. We're educators, and we'll take them where they're at. But to force a summer learning program for our little ones is probably not the best use of time, energy, and funds. So that's the summer learning program. You can back it up maybe to the title slide. Any questions or comments about summer learning?
I just appreciate the summer learning that you are continuing with and the heroic efforts that are going into it. I think that's amazing. And I am so glad to see real summer school. I mean, no one loves summer school. I'm not gonna, put lipstick on a pig, but it's great to have. I have pigs at my house right now.
We are in Hillsborough.
My niece,
FFA weekend, right?
My niece's pigs. Go Tatum Marie. But I really appreciate the fact that there is the old-fashioned summer school with instruction and the accountability with the kids, and there is something neat about having kids in summer school, working with them, and I think that's just, they need that more than anything. So thank you for the extra time and energy and being willing to the district to put the funds there. I think that's great.
Yeah, the funds are important, and props to Connie Marks. She's been working her tail off to make this happen, and the teachers who are volunteering to enter this brave new world with us.
Yes, absolutely.
Very,
That
very
is
nice.
a rock star group.
Yeah.
I just want to say what a great model for distance learning. It's like,
Absolutely.
there it is. It's
There
like,
it
wow.
is. We'll see.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it's
awesome.
certainly got a lot of potential.
Three classes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a full load of whatever, but yeah, it's a very
We'll
impressive,
start there. We'll start
it's a
there.
really impressive structure for sure.
Yeah, it's great. Thank
Yeah,
you,
and I
Erin.
will say we don't have the numbers to support, even if we were going to be in a regular classroom. We don't have the numbers to support a full history social science teacher. Tends to be a class that they don't fail in mass. So even if we were doing, we probably wouldn't, we hadn't slotted to hire a history social science. But Josh Kavanaugh is going to have his hands full with, we've got Spanish that we need to do. We've got upper levels of math. So Jamie Atwood is going to focus on IM1, but we have kids that we need to get through IM2 and IM3. And we've had more success in doing that online, but IM1, having a teacher teach IM1.
Yeah.
Critical.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, that is still a very impressive lineup of activities. Sad to see the STEM Academy and the other program not happening, especially I think because people are really desperately looking for childcare too. But that's still a really impressive lineup.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Okay, well, I'm gonna tip my hat here to Principal Miller. Karen, we're gonna want to make sure that Principal Miller has been unmuted.
Yes, I just want to make sure I checked the chat, and I do not have any public comment for summer school. So we can move on to the next one, and I will unmute Mr. Miller.
I just want to quickly interject. We have a half hour till 9 o'clock when we have to
Yes.
vote to extend the meeting, and we have 5 items to go as well as reports. This next item needs discussion. I'm not saying we need to rush through anything, but just a heads up on time, and as much as we can abbreviate conversation, the better, just so we can only extend it till 9:30. So.
Okay. Thank you for the update.
Yeah.
Totally lost track of time. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna turn the mic over to Principal Miller. He's gonna get us going here. I've got a couple of things to say, and I'm available for questions as well.
All right, great, thank you. So this came up in a discussion in another discussion, kind of came out a couple months ago when we were still able to be human and see each other. So I'm going to talk about our Hillsburg Junior High School 8th grade math pilot for next year. So to put this in context, for the last few years, predating my time coming to Hillsburg Unified, there have been a couple areas of focus. Those include creating more equitable practices, as well as improving student outcomes around mathematics. So what we've done in that time, we've created math action plans. We have a math innovation design team. We've gone through math professional development. Here at the junior high, we focused around lesson study. And as a district, we also have partnered with the National Equity Project. Next slide, please.
Sorry.
So the results of our work in our focus around equity in math have come up with a few different things. So first of all, there is a recommendation for equity items to be put into an action plan that we have put into place and begun working on. Areas of growth in mathematics were identified, and we've put into place a couple of things to try to address that, including our professional development, as well as looking at our curriculum, which we piloted, implemented this year, and have now adopted. And we have ongoing monitoring of our math data and equitable practices throughout the district. And in this process, some discrepancies in some of the math outcomes were identified here at Hillsborough Junior High School. So some of the concerns we had were really focused around the 8th grade math assessment data. So students who took Integrated Mathematics 1 at Hillsborough Junior High School, we saw that 36% of them, this is last year's students, decreased at least one performance level, sometimes two, between what they were able to score in 7th grade on the CASP as opposed to what they scored in 8th grade. And I looked at what that meant for our whole student population, and the students in Math 8, about 15% of them decreased one level. So this is going to raise some questions for us, obviously. Next slide, please. So the question, obviously, why did the scores decrease for many integrated mathematics students? Was this a one-time isolated incident, or is this a trend over time? And if it is a trend, what can we do to prevent this? And also, just what else do we need to look at in terms of our current math practices, especially around integrated Math 1 and Math 8? So unfortunately, in looking at this, you know, we did fortunately, I guess we could say, we did understand more of why the decreases were happening. So students in 8th grade are assessed on 8th grade mathematics standards. Students who are taking IM1, IM1 is based on 9th grade mathematics standards. So at least 40% of the 8th grade mathematics standards are not addressed in any way, shape, or form in IM1. So the takeaway is that integrated mathematics students are assessed on standards they are not taught, resulting in a decrease in 8th grade mathematics performance as measured by our statewide measure, SBAC, which is part of the larger assessment consortium of CASP. So our state testing shows that they decreased, some of them. So again, this was the another unfortunate discovery. This was not a one-time event. This has been occurring for at least the last 3 years, where integrated math students are declining at least one performance level. 36% as measured in 18-19, and then you can see 46 and 29% in the previous 2 years. So that begged the question, what can we do to prevent this from occurring? And so this is why we are moving forward with a pilot to schedule students that are enrolled, excuse me. So we're scheduling students who are enrolled in classes that address Math 8. So all students will be enrolled in Math 8 courses. And we also realized that we wanted to maintain the option for acceleration. So students who are integrated in, or excuse me, interested in taking integrated mathematics 1 in addition to Math 8 will also be able to do so. Turning to the lens of equity, you know, big question, is this an equitable practice, what we had been doing previously? If we take a look at the hard data demographics, Hillsborough Junior High is 68% Latino, 19% English language learners. I won't read all of the numbers to you, but you can see when compared to the integrated mathematics course, those numbers are significantly different than our overall demographics. Furthermore, when the students in integrated math are pulled out of the Math 8 courses, you can see that it also skews the demographics as compared to our overall school demographics, making those classes more Hispanic, more English learners, more students with disabilities, and so on and so forth. So we don't want to base this just on ourselves. We want to look at what the experts in our field say as well. So some of the partners that we have, including U Cubed and Dr. Joel Bowler, believe that this sort of pilot would be more of a best practice. Students will be better prepared for advanced mathematics, we believe. And heterogeneous classes benefit all students, including those that are ready for acceleration and students who are currently struggling.
So I wanted to pipe in a little bit here. You know, nobody knows his kids better and the data better than Principal Miller. But I think it's important from my perspective as the director of CNI, and kind of what I can add to this and what I pay attention to is decisions made by research and decisions made by evidence, right? So we have to, as professional educators, look at what does the research tell us. And so when institutions like the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics and one of the most notable education research outfits in the world, the AIR, shows that over 20 years, every which way they look at this, heterogeneous groupings through 10th grade benefit all students. And I want to make sure that we hear all students. Even students that are ready for acceleration do better in heterogeneous groupings when they are young students through the 10th grade. And we're seeing some bold districts do this. San Francisco Unified. So San Francisco is an interesting microcosm in that it is a unified school district. All of the city of San Francisco, the county of San Francisco, is a unified school district. It's not like here where even our little town, we've got 5 different school choices. You know, there are private schools, obviously, but they can make a decision as a unified school district. They went a step much further than we are talking about, and that they are not offering integrated math 1 in 8th grade at a SFUSD public school any longer. I want to be clear that that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about keeping integrated math 1 at 8th grade, largely because right now we don't have points of acceleration at the high school. SFUSD stuck with the traditional model of Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, then Pre-Calc. We have integrated math. So it's a little harder, I'll be honest, it's a little harder to accelerate because what they do in SFUSD for the kids that want to accelerate in high school is they double up and they take Geometry and Algebra 2 at the same time, or they take Pre-Calc and Algebra 2 at the same time, which is not something that is as easy to do for us. Other communities, Escondido in California, Cambridge, Massachusetts, have taken a similar step to us, in which they make sure that all of the students have Math 8 together. So I just want to say that this has my backing, and it has the backing of research and evidence as well. Chris, next slide.
Next slide. All right, so as there are any changes, there are obviously questions and concerns that are raised. One would be that students will not sign up for IM1 as an elective, and that this is going to be the end of IM1 at HJH. Another concern that it might end up as a combo class. Comments that it might punish the good kids. Claims that admin are lying to the board and IM students' CAS scores did not drop. And some quotes of, you know, we don't have IM1. Why don't we just have IM1 and add the 40% of standards that aren't addressed? And students have to make choices. Can't they just have some fun electives? So in response to that, our current student responses for their elective courses next year indicate that we will have an IM1 class that is at near full capacity. Over 20 students, and probably similar to what we have right now. IM1 and Math 8 will not be combined. In fact, this has never even been discussed as a possibility. we look at acceleration as an option, not as a punishment. Students have to make choices about their classes. That's just a stark reality. And to put it bluntly, parents start making choices for students when they're in kindergarten. In our district, deciding whether or not to put them in the charter school or the blended learning side has been a choice that parents have had to make early on. Parents who choose AV or West Side are making the choice to have their kids continue with elementary education through 6th grade instead of coming to Hillsborough Junior High for 6th grade. So yes, there are choices that have to be made. Kids can't take 5, 6, 7, 8 elective courses, but we know that parents are beginning to make those choices very early on for their kids as well. Many of our IM1 students do perform well. That's true. Some of our highest performing students are our IM1 students. But the fact that they disproportionately decrease compared to Math 8 students is also proven by data. And lastly, if students love math, if math is your jam, so to speak, an additional math course, in addition to a chosen elective, should be a fun course for you. Some additional rationale of how we move forward with this is that with the 7-period day, students will continue to receive an elective course while being able to pursue acceleration. So this is not common for most middle schools in the area. So students will not be denied an elective opportunity. They can have acceleration and have an elective as well. Many other students take 2 math courses in 1 year at HJH. Our math support students and our math intervention students also have 2 math courses, and this is a practice that's been put in place for many years and has never been questioned. Our math support and math intervention will continue to be supported with Math 180 curriculum, which is recommended by U Cubed as well. And our students who are looking to pursue STEM majors will have multiple math and science courses taken concurrently, and this is an approach that will help prepare them for future success. Next slide, please. So just a couple of other things to consider. No other subject matter even entertains the option of students skipping over a whole grade of course level work. Students who take Spanish 1, no matter how well they do, would not be accelerated to Spanish 3. Students who do well in Science 6 would not jump to Science 8, for example. When a practice is proven to be inequitable, as we've shown some data that clearly indicates that through our demographics, we must change the practice, regardless of whether people want it to continue or not. I know that there are some who question how why we're moving forward with this. Hopefully this clears things up. But I leave you with a quote from Albert Einstein, which is, what is right is not always popular, and what is popular is not always right. That's
Any
it.
questions or comments from the board?
I'll start with a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I've been muting and unmuting, and now I forgot if I'd unmuted. Whether using the old model or this new pilot model, how are kids identified as potential IM1 students?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So there are a few different measures that we use. So classroom performance, as well as multiple assessment data points, including class assessments, our STAR assessment, and in most years, also the CASP or SBAC assessment.
So, because I know, I mean, as far as, equity issues, we want to make sure we're not missing kids, or that we are able to catch kids who show potential, maybe are borderline, but who really show the potential to excel, as they mature and get older and whatnot. And
yeah, I was just checking in with Principal Miller about that. Was that this morning, Chris? Oh my gosh, it's been a long day. About how, what are the enrollment numbers looking like, and, what's the demographic of the class for IM1? And, he mentioned to me that As every year, there are kids that we see on paper, we see in data that are ready for acceleration, and that we think they'd be a great fit for Math 8 plus IM1. So he is reaching out to students, and those tend to be underserved, right? Those tend to be students whose parents don't know there's a choice. They don't even know what IM1 is. So Principal Miller and Aaron Ryan, as the dean, always have and will continue to reach out to individual students. But I'll say in this format, I think that the little bit I know is that it's not as scary for kids because they know they'll be in Math 8 with their peers, and taking this leap and kind of seeing themselves in a little bit of a different light, I think is going to be a game changer for some kids that normally would say like, nope, I'm not doing that. I'm not, that's different. My family's not different. I'm not different.
Yeah, it is interesting because I actually see that as a less of an obstacle. I mean, yes, it's 2 math classes. That's a little scary. But the idea that you're not missing something, you're not having to skip something, you're not maybe overreaching, sounds a little more approachable to me.
I had a question about, and maybe Principal Miller, you can speak to this. The math teacher, the 8th grade math teacher that teaches IM1. Did you have an opportunity to speak with her about maybe some of her thoughts around her students in her class and maybe what she's identified really as a gap in their learning? Did you have an opportunity, or has there been a chance to do much of that?
Can I, Chris, hold on to the answer? Typically we do public comment before we get into board discussion.
Oh, good point.
We have 2 public comments.
Great.
So Karen, do you want to go ahead and take it away? And then I wrote your question down, Jamie, if you forget it. So we'll start with that.
Thank you, Chris.
I wrote it down too. Thank you.
I'm sorry about that. The first comment would be for Mindy Kiff, and I just need to find her. Oh, there she is. Okay, she's unmuted.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, so I guess I kind of have more of a question than a comment. And so Aaron Fender pointed out that currently there is no avenue for acceleration at the high school in the math program. So I guess I would like some clarification, or correct me if I'm wrong, that in order to take calculus as a senior, an HUSD student must take IM1 as an 8th grader. And if they don't take IM1 as an 8th grader, there's absolutely no possible way they can take calc as a senior. And so if my understanding is correct, I'm wondering what has been done to reach out to students and families to communicate this so as to help students and families make strategic and informed decisions when selecting their electives. Because with Spanish being a 2-year elective program, if 7th grade students or soon to be 7th grade students haven't been informed of all of this and this change, they could potentially end up in a position where they didn't realize they needed to take IM1 as an elective. And it could, it basically, when we went to sign up for electives this year, I had this information. I knew this, but a lot of families that we know did not know this. And I passed it on to them the day that we were supposed to sign up for electives. And they had to go back and completely rethink what they were doing with this information, and had to go back and have discussions with their students so as their student could make an informed decision. And of course, I can't reach out to all 7th grade families, so I'm wondering what the school has done to reach out to the incoming 6th grader and 7th grade families that this will affect. And I think that was it.
Thank you, Mindy. We'll continue with comments, and then we'll go back to our discussion and nicely.
Okay.
Timothy's. Next, Karen.
Next person to comment is Corinne Ephraim. I just need to find her. Sorry. Okay, here she is.
Hello, everybody. Let's see. Some of you may know by now that my kids both, well, they're in high school now, or my daughter will soon be in high school. And they both were in IM1 at the high school. So, I mean, at the junior high, sorry. But I just wanted to clarify one point that I feel like was a little bit of a misrepresentation on the slide. And it's just a really minor point, but I did want to clarify it because there was the point that said parents were concerned that, quote, good kids would be, they were concerned that, you know, good kids were being punished. And I just wanted to clarify that because I think it's a super important point, you know, of a possible misunderstanding of what parents that I had talked to were concerned about. And I know that other parents have been concerned about. We're not saying that we, it's about the good kids. What we were saying is that the concern was that kids who needed and or wanted the academic and were ready and prepared for that academic challenge, it felt like that was the issue of possible being punitive. So I just really believe that's a very subtle but very important point, and I don't want the board or anybody at this meeting in the community to think that parents were categorizing their kids as being good and the kids who weren't academically ready for that math course is, you know, bad or not good. That was the point I just wanted to say.
Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Yeah, good point, Corinne. Thank you.
I do too.
Thank you, Corinne. And I'm looking, and I don't see any other public comments.
So, Jamie, your question, do we remember your question?
I do. I know it's shocking. I remember my question was to Principal, I can't say that word tonight, Mr. Miller.
Yes.
If what the input was from, if you had the opportunity to glean it from the IM teacher at the junior high, what her thoughts were about some of the issues that you spoke about.
Yeah, absolutely. So every year when we get close to trying to take the SBAC CASP, she has to try to scramble for the last couple of weeks before the test is given to try to find the areas that she knows are going to be tested but haven't been covered. And so she takes a couple of weeks out of the instruction to try to do that. And like I said, she recognizes that you know, a staggering amount of the standards are simply not covered. You know, 40%. And I think if we really comb through it, we would find that it's even more than that. But 40% at least of the standards are not covered, and so students are going into an assessment that they are not prepared for. And so,
yeah, I'll say she feels badly, like she feels like she hasn't set them up for long-term success. And you know, as we all know, math builds. And so you can, for a while, right, kind of make it work and figure it out, especially if you have some natural productivity. And most of the kids do. I think the other thing that's important that I've had multiple conversations with Gloria Hurtado and a number of the other educators at the junior high and that have taught IM1 at the middle school is that the demographics don't mirror and come close to mirroring. And, you know, Gloria is bilingual, bicultural. She's been with us. She's female. And I think she's very excited about the possibility that this will open up some opportunities for kids who haven't had that opportunity in the past. So not only the like feeling bad as a teacher that she didn't get to everything that she knows the kids need to know, but also serving a wider range of students.
So I would like either you, Aaron, or Chris Miller to address Mindy's question?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
Briefly, and I can follow up. I'd be happy to have another conversation with Mindy, but I think it's worth saying here from
No, I'd like to hear it.
And I'd want to kind of wrap that into, maybe we don't have time tonight, but about the fact that we don't have other pathways other than this. This is the moment. And I feel like sometimes kids don't hit their stride academically till 10th grade, 11th grade. And
so our curriculum, Math Vision Project at the high school, is designed, it does have, and I've talked with our high school math teachers, there is an acceleration point in IM3 that we could try on, that we could pilot just like we are here. You know, they've been getting used to that curriculum, but we've talked about, and I know they're open to it, right? So I want to be clear that there's been long periods of talk, even when we decided to get MVP many years ago, that curriculum does allow for an accelerated IM3, so kids could take calc in high school. So to Mindy's question, agree, right? We can always do a better job of helping middle school parents when their kids are 11, 12 years old, trying to help them see when they're 17, 18 years old, what their course selection needs to be. And that's true for all AP classes. For a non-Spanish speaker to get to AP Spanish, they need to take Spanish in junior high, right? If you're gonna be if you're a non-native Spanish speaker and you're gonna take AP Spanish in high school, 99% of those kids have to have prerequisite in middle school. Also, AP Calc is a college level course. Let's be clear, that it is not typical. And majority of high schools in the United States do not even offer AP Calc. We are in the minority, and we are in the minority specifically with the size of a school we are. We're small, we're semi-rural. Here for me, as far as I can see, we will be offering AP Calc. It's important, but it's not a normal trajectory for even a kid headed to a four-year school. AP Calc is a college level course. So yes, we can and we will do a better job of helping parents of 11, 12-year-olds understand kind of what their course selection process may or may not lead to. But I also want to be clear that it's an atypical, it's not a Joe kid taking AP Calc in high school. It's an extraordinary student.
Aaron, can I ask you a question?
I'm actually going to jump in because it's 3 minutes to 9.
Thank you. I was going to say that.
And I think we want to keep this conversation going at least for a little while longer. So can I get a motion and a second to extend our meeting till 9:15, and then again as needed at 9:15?
I move to extend.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, no one's opposed. Please, Mike, continue.
Thank you. I'm sorry. One of the researchers that I think you mentioned here that I had seen, it was a San Francisco model, and they did, and just correct me, somewhere around junior year, going into junior year, they could take 1 or 2 classes. One direction was into pre-calc and then the calc. Another direction was into statistics and then into pre-calc, or straight through the regular math classes. Do we have something like that? I guess that's what I'm trying to get to as far as alternatives at the high school.
Yeah, and again, for the size of high school, props to the high school math teachers that we offer pre-calc and calc. We offer statistics. It's not AP stats. So for kids that want to continue their math career but aren't ready for a college level course, which is what AP Calc is, they can take statistics. And again, Dr. Bowler and many other mathematicians will tell you they're better served taking stats, especially, very few people use calculus, right? Lots of us use stats.
So in this model that we're proposing, they would still have those options, I guess is where I'm going.
Yeah, so we require 3 years, right? So they could still take stats, they can take financial algebra as a junior or senior.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's a concern of parents, if not students.
And that's different than like different pathways to get to that calc. If you've missed IM1 in 8th grade, can you still get to that more rigorous
where we need to work on that.
Yeah, I think that would be something.
That's the question. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we need, that's, that's something on my to-do pile.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Chris Vandenheuvel, I'd like to thank you for the articles that you sent. I appreciated being able to read those.
Yeah, good.
And it helped me to, well, now I know exactly what Chris Miller was talking about too, when he was bringing those studies up.
And I was thinking actually we could, this was Mike Potmasil's suggestion, that we could potentially just post those on a page on the website for parents to go reference to, because
that's a great idea.
Kind of get into the research. And
I actually would like a little more in-depth research than those. Those were kind of survey articles, I thought. But I wanted to bring up something else. It's something that I've talked to you, Chris Vandenheuvel, about too. And that's just been ruminating a lot about middle school, junior high school, because I have a grandson who's enrolling in 6th grade next year. And we talked at one point, maybe it wasn't in public, about moving the 6th grades back to the elementary school, that was a possibility. I've just been thinking a lot about junior high and our history here in Healdsburg with junior high. And I would like to request that we have a innovative design team take a look at, under Chris Miller's leadership, take a look at different kinds of models of middle schools that don't just look like miniature high schools. And that we really take a look at the children who are at middle school and what their developmental and emotional needs are, and whether or not the kind of school that we provide meets those. And if we do, great, that will be validated if we're looking at it. My instinct right now, looking at my 11-year-old approaching 6th grade at the junior high school, is that it's not an appropriate emotional or academically, he's a whiz. He's not gonna have any problem academically at school. I'm just not convinced that that's the right kind of an environment. And so I've been thinking a lot about it this spring. And I also go back to a lot of our concerns about the junior high school. And Donna's been around for a long time, that we've had these concerns for a long time. And I'm really wondering if we need to, if what we should be doing is looking at the kind of school that we're providing at an age that is very complicated for these little guys. I just read an article in the New York Times about, it's called, it's based on a book called Why Has My Kid Stopped Talking to Me? But it's about middle school and how nationwide we really need to be looking at this age level. And I've read that for years, decades. So I would really like us to consider asking that we have an innovative design team to look at our junior high school program and to see whether that is in fact what we're doing, which looks to me like a mini high school. I talked to Erin. I always was under the assumption that in 6th grade they had 2 core teachers, a humanities core teacher and a math science core teacher. It's not true. They have 7 different teachers when they go in 6th grade. I think that's a problem.
I think that's a great, I think we need to table that tonight. Put it on a list of maybe some of our prioritizing too as a board.
And I would second that, Judy, just to take a look at it. I was a junior high school principal and a middle school principal, and they're different concepts, but I think it's worth looking at.
Yeah, I'd really like to look at it. And maybe we could change the name of the school to middle school.
So we
Or middle school, yeah.
I
But
know we have to move on.
noted,
Back to- okay,
self-reflection, best practice is great, and I think we do need to move on. Unless
Yes, and so back to the topic, I have to say, I like that this is a pilot for next year. Happy that you have a number of students, healthy number of students enrolled in the IM1 in addition to Math 8. I would like to maybe get an updated report in the fall about how we're going to assess the success of this, especially without a CASP this year. And just in terms of how the students are dealing with it and what do the teachers think and how do we assess that next year without a CASP?
Yeah, absolutely. We can bring probably a report sometime in the fall and then one towards the end of the year to talk about how it's going.
Please.
Yeah.
Because we really want to keep an eye on this, and then maybe by the end of next year we'll have a little time to look at other pathways, which the more I think about it, the more I think it'd be really valuable.
Yeah, and as to Erin's point, I don't want to get into it, but there's a lot to talk about on what the end goal in high school math is. Like Erin said,
yes.
as an assessment student, one can make the argument that statistics is far more relevant to most college-going students, and in this day and age especially. And so we have more to talk about, but it's almost 10 after 9. So
yes, it is 9:06.
I want to make a suggestion that we don't take a break, and maybe move the reports up to right now if we could.
Yeah, yes, I agree. There's no action on this. It was an update.
It's a discussion, Madam. Yeah.
Okay. And okay. Reports. Who do we have first?
I think Sally's half report was earlier.
Yes.
All right, good.
So we would have Hada and CSEA, and I think CSEA might actually give a report today. So first is Hada, and then if Susie's here, she'll give the.
So Karen, if you can unmute Ever, I assume, yes?
Sorry, Ever.
There we are.
Hello there, how you guys doing? Okay, so it sounds like the district and the association, we are discussing a few things that we bring into negotiations starting tomorrow. We're talking about which MOUs we're going to be renewing and terminating. We have quite a few standing MOUs, and I think Chris can give you a list of those. Second, we've already surveyed all our members regarding safety issues that they might be feeling and concerns about COVID-19. And we are looking forward to comparing our notes with the district's survey, because I think they're going to send one out soon to see what is best for Healdsburg students and teachers for the coming year. And 3, we've also communicated to the district our interest in creating a committee that includes teachers if our district, for some reason or another, does not look the same in terms of our traditional scheduling. And it sounded like the district is amenable to that idea. And lastly, as chapter president of the Healdsburg Area Teachers Association, I want to give a personal shout out to and thank you to all the Healdsburg educators. HADA teachers are 1 in a million. They are leaders, advocates, and cheerleaders for each and every student on their campus. When presented with hardships, our teachers are resilient and flexible. They have one goal in mind, their students. Board members, I hope you remember that investing in our teachers should be one of your top priorities, because you can't put students first by putting teachers last. Thank you, and we look forward to our negotiations tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow. And, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ever.
Thank you, Ever. Is there a CSEA report?
Yes, there is.
Excellent.
Susie, I think I unmuted you. I think you have to unmute yourself now, Susie.
So, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Hi, everybody. First, I'd like to introduce myself. I know some of you, but I am the new CSCA chapter president. I have been for a couple months. I plan on trying to attend every board meeting. I do live in Cloverdale, so once I get home, I don't like to turn around and come back. But I'm going to do my best to bring a report to you each month. We're getting our unit back together. We did our first Zoom meeting today. We had 25 people on. So I think we need to Zoom all the time because it's a lot easier for people to get on a Zoom from home and not, you know, have to hang out after work and stuff. So first of all, we wanted to thank all of you for the video that was sent out today. We really appreciated it, and it was very nice. I think it made everybody feel good in this time right now where every classified person is still working really hard. If you've seen our food service people out, you know, exposing themselves out in the public, our maintenance people for us going in and out of the offices and having to clean. I feel bad when I go in and out and stay for 4 or 5 hours because I feel like they're waiting for me to leave. But I have seen them, and they're like, no problem. This is what we're supposed to be doing. So I want to really shout out to them and all the classified workers who work so hard. And when we had our meeting today, we were trying to come up with something to say, and this is what came up. Thank you for recognizing exactly what classified workers are. We are essential, and we are the glue that keeps the schools together. And those are perfectly, two perfectly things that describe our unit. And I know that a lot of you have probably seen more of that in the last 2 months also. So I look forward to seeing you once a month, and hopefully we can have a good relationship going. I'm sure we will. And we'd like to maybe, Chris, have you join one of our meetings soon, just so some of the newer people can meet you. And I think they like hearing things from you more than from leadership. So anyway, that's about it.
Well said. Absolutely agree with everything you said, and I'm happy to join. So thank you, Susie.
Yeah,
Welcome. Welcome to the board meeting.
Welcome,
Great to have you.
Nice to have you.
Good job, Susie.
That's it on reports. Yes.
I actually have a short report from Alex, but can we vote to extend again first?
Yes. Yeah, because it is 9:12. Do I have a
Second.
Okay, all approved? All who, okay, vote.
All in favor? Yeah.
All in favor? That's the word. Okay, thank you.
So Alex couldn't be here tonight, and this is unfortunately would have been his last board meeting. And he was I thought he did a great job as trustee, so it's a bummer we don't get to send him off properly, but I do want everyone to know that we did get him a little gift that he'll use in college that we'll pass off to him when he goes. He's going to be attending. I'm not sure if he's still attending first semester because I don't know if they're going to be in online learning or not, but he's going to Goucher in near Baltimore. Yeah. So.
Very cool.
So here's his update. He had some Wi-Fi issues, so couldn't be on tonight. Key Club donated $1,000 to the school in order to help fund graduation gifts for seniors. So that was really nice.
Nice.
The exams have been successful for the most part. Personally speaking for Alex, it has been at times difficult to complete and upload the work. And there's headlines on the news about some difficulties with College Board. Several students were not unable to upload or log into their tests, forcing them to apply for retake tests in June. The senior class loves the banner at Rec Park, and a bunch of students went to Krispy Kreme to get free donuts as a tribute to the difficult graduation status they're facing. So that was fun. And although this has been a rough school year, the hopes of hundreds of kids in the district remain high. Thank you for having me as your student trustee and helping me better understand how progress in education occurs. Thank you for everything. Alejandro Dominguez. So.
Hey, Alex.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
Please convey our appreciation to him.
We will. So we have 4 items left, and we kind of need to fire through them.
Okay. Deals for junior high school history social science curriculum. Aaron. Unmute Aaron.
Got it.
Okay, so we talked about this last time. We are asking for a vote on this to move forward to formally adopt TCI for our middle school. Quick reminder, we already adopted this for grades 10, 11, 12, the history, social science classes at the high school. Largely comes from lottery funds, so teachers are excited about it. Thankfully, it has a giant online component. We're ready to go.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Give it to Mike.
Give it to Mike.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. No one's opposed. All right. That's a record. LCAP. Aaron.
Oh.
All right, we're gonna go through this real fast. Karen's got a PowerPoint, but while she gets that up, I'm gonna start talking. You guys all heard this about 2 weeks ago. Really, there's not a lot of new. There was an executive order that I mentioned when we were in a board meeting around 2 weeks ago. So the highlights here are: you will not be approving an LCAP in June. You will be approving a budget. So they've separated those two things. Next slide. We will be bringing a written report to you. You can see these are the prompts that we will be addressing as long as every other school district in California. So this is what we'll be bringing to you next month. Each of these bullet points has a 300-word limit. So it's not meant to be, an explanation of everything we've done. And so each bullet point has a 300-word limit. It is a summary. It's a high-level document for the community, not supposed to be edu-speak. So you guys will see this at the next board meeting.
Okay.
Next. I had mentioned in our conversation about this before that they're postponing that new template until the following year, so 21-22. And we expect that significantly reduced LCAP template for what you would approve then in December, right? So it's not that there's no LCAP, it's just that they're pushing it out to December and they're gonna use a much reduced template and then put the new template off for another year. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, next slide.
Yeah. We'll be halfway through the year when we adopt the LCAP.
Exactly. And you'll already have approved.
Totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll figure out what we're doing.
Might be distance learning then too, so it'll be great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dashboard's on hold.
Yeah. Although there was a little bit of misunderstanding from the county office. The timeline of completing the local indicators has been waived, not the local indicators completely. So all the data like CASP, LPAC, that's been waived. But the local indicators are, are we providing adequate curriculum? Do kids get ELD services, that kind of stuff? We still will report on that, but the timeline has been changed.
Okay.
Okay, you guys can read these. I just wanted to summarize it for you. It's not really worth presenting, but you guys can read it. And if anybody has any questions about where we're going with all this, just ping me.
Good summary, and thank you for staying up on all this. Any questions, comments on this? For a declaration of need for fully qualified educators 2021.
Need to unmute Franny. Franny, you there?
Unmute Franny.
Finally, Franny. Yes.
There we go. Hi,
Franny.
Oh my goodness. All righty. So this declaration of need form is basically something I submit every year to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. It's just our way of laying it out ahead of time as best we can estimate what areas, what teaching areas we think we may have to hire someone on an emergency permit. So, if someone comes from out of state and they don't have CLAD, they're going to need to get emergency CLAD for, the first school year. We often will need, and it could be an intern too. So if we need to hire a special ed intern teacher, or, you know, in this school year, we had an intern, Emily Decept. You were on there earlier, but I think you're gone now. And then we had Josh Kavanaugh was actually an intern at the high school in PE. So very typical. It's something that can be amended if we have drastic situations where we have more than what we're estimating we'll need.
So these are not people currently on staff?
No.
No, it just represents what we think we might possibly remotely need for next year.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I move that we accept the declaration of need. I'm looking at the clock.
I'll second. Jamie, are you still in?
Yes, I'm there. I'm here. Sorry, I dropped something.
Oh, that's okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Chris, the specifications of the election order item.
Yeah, so we need to declare that we're going to have an election in November. Three of your seats are up. I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you if you're running, but
I think we just keep them.
Jamie, Judy, and Araceli, their seats are up. And so we have to do this resolution to be able to get it on the ballot and then be able to give specific instructions for folks on how to run.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
This will be a roll call.
Okay, so trustee Potmasol.
Aye.
Trustee Velasquez.
Aye.
Trustee Kiff.
Aye.
And trustee Del Rey.
Aye.
Who seconded that?
I did actually. Or did you, Jamie? There you go.
Well, I don't know. I said it.
No, Jamie did it.
I wrote Jamie.
Because the only other one was me and I didn't say anything.
Got it.
I was going to jump in if there had been any delay.
Thank you.
Okay. Woo!
All right.
That was a long one.
Closed?
About going to closed session, is that still a possibility?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So we'll be going.
And guess what? I just sent you another link.
Oh,
it's like Christmas.
It is like Christmas.
And
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for
Thank
your perseverance. Stay well, stay sane.
Our next meeting for everybody.
It's not Wednesday, June 10th. It's actually going to be Wednesday, June 17th. We're not going to do the June 10th special meeting because that's for LCAP. So we're going to do one June meeting instead of two.
Great.
So
Well,
June
if we have
17th.
any other update meetings, you'll let us know.
We will inevitably have some specials, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks.
Thanks for joining
Okay,
us.
so we're